Welcome back to another episode of the League of Extremely Ordinary Gentlemen. And let's kick off our Western episodes, everybody with a big yeehaw. Can I get that?
Yeehaw! And there go at least 30 members here.
Screw you guys, we're in Texas.
But think of all the NASCAR dads we'll get listening to us now.
No.
Now, yeah, we're doing our Western episode because, well, we've been wanting to do one for a long time.
And because we are huge on the rodeo circuit.
There is that. And you look really good in a pair of chaps, I gotta say. Although, Jason, you look good in everything.
Well.
I'm not going to go there with you, Leon.
Thank you.
Just not.
I'm
not going there with you on that.
It's okay, man. You can be comfortable enough to admit that another man looks good.
Sure, just not Jason.
Well,
okay, fine.
But you know,
next time I am going to wear the chaps and nothing else.
We got the Jonah Hex movie coming out this week, which, okay, as we record this, we haven't seen it. But then by the time this is up,
what could
we will
possibly go wrong?
Right.
Okay.
I mean,
oh, Lord.
I mean, you've seen the trailers, right? Doesn't it look awesome?
You know what? I was the person who was the most excited person about this movie because I love the comic book. I love like the whole haunted Wild West like motif. I think that's great. And I was at Comic-Con like just with bells on at the Jonah Hex thing going, yes! And I walked out going, fuck!
No, I think the trailer looks fun. I'm a huge fan too. I think it looks like a blast, but there's still that nagging thing from having seen so many movies where it's my spider sense is tingling going, you know this isn't going to be good.
Well, the fact that they're not showing it for the press, and it's a Warner Brothers company, and they show everything. It's like, wow, you're not showing this? And it's 72 minutes long.
Yeah.
What?
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that's barely enough to
72
qualify
minutes.
as a movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a TV special.
It's slightly longer with the credits included, but it's 72 minutes of actual...
There goes all of Megan Fox's scenes.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to be thankful that it's only 72 minutes.
You know, what kills me is that, like, everybody's been, like, bad-mouthing Megan Fox. I'm like, hey, man, actresses have a hard time. Give her a break. Let her have a chance. And every time they show a scene where she talks, I just cringe. Like, ooh, this is going to be the worst part.
She has an Armani contract, like, modeling contract. Don't feel sorry for her.
Those of us with penises don't cringe. So
I thought you did when you looked at her hands.
No,
There was a whole
when
thing
she
about her
talks?
hands.
When she talks, yeah.
Like, but when I watch with the sound down, it's great.
I'm like one of those things, models should not necessarily be actresses. Some can pull it off. It's a rare case, but it can happen. I don't think
it
she's
worked
one
for
of...
you.
Now,
that's true. And thank you. I'll wear my assless chaps next week.
But one of the big reasons we're doing our Western episodes, I mean, besides Jonah Hex, that's great and all, but we have a special guest, one of our favorite authors, Mr. Joe R. Lansdale. Now, that's the kind of thing where, you know, our buddy Rick Claw, who was supposed to come on last week, he didn't get the email, but it's the kind of thing where he first approached me and said, like, yeah, hey, how would you like to interview Joe for the show? I'm like, are you kidding? Is it a trick question? Hell yeah. And then later he says, like, well, Joe wants to come and do the show. So after I woke up again, I was like, yeah, pull the trigger on that. Make it happen. So we're going to have him here to interview for you guys in a little bit. But let's just jump in just real quick. Let's get through this real fast.
And to the introductions.
Oh, introduction. That's right. Well,
I haven't even said who's here.
Man, you are so big on roll call.
I want to make sure that everybody knows. And
I
role
think it's
play,
a good
too,
idea.
but that's a whole thing that I promised Mary we wouldn't talk about.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, clearly, it's, Leon's here.
yes.
Jason.
Cat.
I'm Cyrus. And then, yeah, I mean, we should just go
And we
ahead
have our
say-
special guest.
Our special guest.
Yeah.
That'd be me.
Hi, Joe.
Lansdale.
Yeah, Joe
What do
Lansdale.
you know,
Welcome,
Joe?
sir.
Thank you.
Now, before we get into talking to Joe, let's we got to address whatever new has come up. There has to be some news. Seriously, you guys, I do this every week and I get crickets.
Wish I had that soundboard now.
I wish I could get Grant's crickets.
What I mean, aside
Okay,
from,
okay. Anybody seen like the latest pictures of the Thor movie?
Yeah, it doesn't look any better
I
than
know, it
other
looks-
stuff
it looks-
before.
it
I
looks-
wish
it
it
looks
could
it.
be good. I just don't think by the nature of Thor, the comic book, and the character, you can make it into a live-action film.
okay,
that's
I
any
disagree.
good.
I disagree, too.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that because I hope that someone's got that vision because I can't think of a way to make it.
You don't
work.
think you don't think it's possible to make it good?
I just can't think of one.
I don't think
So,
they're doing it.
Yeah, I don't think they're
But I
doing
think
it
it's
for
possible.
sure. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those, like, of all the things you could do, why are you doing Thor?
How would it look better? I mean, well, you don't think it can be done at all.
I think that they should have gone with rather than a superhero-y looking suit for him, which is totally the way they went, going with something that feels like it's out of a historical epic film type thing. You know, like he's wearing
for sure.
chainmail over cloth armor
Yeah.
that like looks kind of like the costume in the comics.
Make it a down and dirty Nordic action flick with magic. And
I want to say more like Northlanders, the comic book, than the Thor comic book,
Yeah.
Just saying. I mean, why not go that way? In fact, there was an early idea for this that I thought was kind of neat, where they were like, okay, so all the Asgardians are actually a totally different dimension. They're not like really gods. They're from a parallel dimension, and they're
I think that's what they are doing.
Is that what they are going? Okay, because I thought that was actually a good idea.
That's been some ridiculous retcon in the comic book, and I think it's ludicrous.
I read a recent synopsis that didn't sound like that's what was going on.
Okay. I thought they were.
So I thought, you have to retell the story in a drastically different way to make it work for film, especially in the same universe that they've already set up with the Hulk, Iron Man, the upcoming Captain America.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you can still blend medieval fantasy Thor with these quote-unquote realistic technology-based characters, but you have to play it like a fish out of water. You have to make this guy is your sore thumb. He is your god amongst all of this technology, and I think that could work.
I mean, doing it like you can do it like the Ultimates version, which I thought is plausible way to do it. I'm glad they didn't go that way.
Ultimates, in the Ultimates, they play it up more ambiguous in that, well, is he or is he not actually a god? That was the whole thread running through the first two arcs.
Yeah.
And that's good.
I'm just wondering.
That works.
I'm wondering mainly, because this is a Kenneth Branagh film, right? Who's famous for Shakespearean films, and he's very, very good at doing those.
Which to me, I'm like, hey, why not just make it Shakespeare with a bunch of lightning and hammer?
I just hope that the subtitles have that weird font in the comic book from when the DVD comes out.
Well, that was a big problem with Thor before Straczynski took him over in the comics, is that he's this Norse god, yet he's speaking with the Shakespearean patois and these and thous and.
It's like you've been living in New York for like 30 years now, dude.
Right.
Because that's what everybody defaults to when they don't know how to write what they perceive as, quote, medieval dialogue.
That's true.
Hey, guys, Stan Lee was doing the best job he knew how.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, but once again, he's been in New York for a while, so you'd expect he'd still have the accent a little bit, but he'd be like, hey, you guys, get the hells out of there.
You still talk like you're from Virginia?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. You've been there in Austin how long?
20 years.
You've still got all these weird pronunciations.
You still have sex with your sister? Come on.
What? I never had sex with your sister. I mean, yeah, I did actually have sex with your sister, but I didn't have sex with my sisters.
Joe? Yep. How do you think Chris has... No, never mind. How do you think a Thor movie should work? I mean, if you were to...
Oh, man, I'm prejudiced because I read the early Thors with all the Shakespearean stuff.
Classic Stan Lee.
Yeah, and I really like those. But, I mean, honestly, if you put that on film, people laugh you out of the theater now.
Yeah.
But he actually had more of a superhero costume, seemed like to me back then. It seemed like it was blue and red. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's been a while. But Thor, I love Thor. I love the whole idea of him with a cane and slamming it on the ground.
Donald Blake,
the hammer, and all. So I want something that feels like that, but yet has a more of a modern touch. I think it's like they did Iron Man. I read Iron Man when I was a kid. When I read the very first issue, and like everybody, I had it in my mother, the whole story. But when I read that back then, and I saw the movie, the first one, especially, they redid it, but yet they gave it a little twist and made it a little more modern.
Yeah.
It was the Vietnam War when I read it, and the dialogue was a lot clunkier and whatever, but it was this good, powerful story.
Yeah.
And when I like comic book films and when I like modern comics that are dealing with the old themes, I don't want them to dismiss the past. Right. I want them to know that and know that foundation and not change the foundation, but to change the stuff around it.
How to reconcile it.
Yeah, there is a way to do it. I always thought that Batman, the animated versions, did it better than anything.
Absolutely.
Those are my favorite Batmans.
Absolutely.
I mean, not just because I wrote some of the animated series, but the later ones, even The Brave and the Bold, which are just like the 1950s comics that I read.
They're
when
hilarious.
I was growing up. 50s and early 60s. Of course, we didn't know they were funny then.
Right.
Well, I heard an interview with the guy, one of the showrunner for the Brave and the Bold, and he said basically what he's doing, he's taking like the Adam West Batman he used to watch him as a kid, which he didn't know was a comedy. This is how he imagined it was. Like he imagined it to be, Batman being cool, and he's like, okay, if I went from my imagination then, this is how these adventures would play out.
That the Batman in the 60s, when it first came on, I was disappointed somewhat because I loved Batman so much. But what I didn't realize, it was almost verbatim the comics I was reading.
Right.
But when you read them as a comic and as a kid, you got a different feeling. But they had bat cycles and the bat plane, and they'd have things listed. And later on, when I look back, I went, huh. That was really pretty accurate. Yeah.
Well, they actually the writer Grant Morrison recently, in a run that I like Grant when he's not writing a superhero that's like a known guy. I don't like it when he takes on big names, and I don't like what he's been doing with Batman. And one of the things we didn't like in general,
I just bought that comic. Don't tell me that.
One of the things we didn't like is
2 hours ago I purchased that comic.
Cyrus.
Did Rick Claw talk you into doing that?
Yes, he did.
I'll punish him myself.
No, actually, I wanted it, but he said, "Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing."
The Batman R.I.P. is that the one you
Yeah.
got, or did you get the Batman?
No,
and Robin?
Batman and Robin.
Okay, that's better than Batman.
Oh,
and
no,
Robin.
that's good.
No,
Yeah,
I
you'll
looked
like
at the
that.
RIP and I didn't buy it, but I
not
would buy anything by Grant Morrison.
Well, he decided that the whole of the 60s Batman, that crazy, like Batman and all that stuff, was a backup thing that he had put in his own head psychologically in case any villain tried to attack him through like drugs or anything like that, or something that would attack his mind.
Well, that's very
to
smart.
Fall back on. So that was all this imaginary universe. And you're right, it was, except it had this Batman running around who was basically a drug addict in the book, and it's Batman.
Yeah, you're
Well,
right. I got to go with you there.
There's plus there's only so many things Batman can do. It's like really like on top of a one-man fight on crime, he can build backup personalities into his brain. It's like 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, the Batmans that I first remembered, they were all had like science fictional themes.
Yes.
They weren't as gritty because they'd come off of the early grittier ones that Bob Kane had invented that other people were doing.
Much more noirish.
But they were much more noirish. And then the others were science fictional, like Superman and all those. And they had Batman would deal with aliens or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of Batman the Animated Series and the episodes you wrote. We watched one of them last night.
You watched
Two of them last night.
Oh, you got there.
For those of us
you
who
got
were
that.
actually paying attention.
I got there late. I got there late and I saw the ventriloquist one. What was the other one?
The Jonah Hex.
Yeah,
Oh, the
Showdown.
Showdown. Showdown. Yeah.
I did 4 of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, actually, I did 3 for Batman the Animated Series, and then they had one that I think was called Batman and Robin, and then called They had a couple.
They changed the names on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was basically the same.
No.
well, they changed the
it
animation
became
style.
More, Robin was brought into it.
It was
became a little bit more kiddier.
Yeah.
And I did. What's fun is I did the Read My Lips, which is one of the ones everybody loves, and then I did the Critters, which is one of the most reviled of the series. And so I'm on both bookends. But I actually, and Bruce Timm and a lot of us, we all liked the reviled one because it did exactly what we thought.
Is that right? Really?
Yeah. The guy who invented Howard the Duck actually came up with the premise, and then they gave it to me to write, and then they gave it to, there was like an insane director, insane writer, insane idea guy, and so it just went nuts. And then when they animated it, though, they animated it even more in an odd way. And I think it's kind of like a campy gem, you know.
Yeah, well, when Steve Gerber comes up with the initial seed of an idea, then it's who the hell knows where it's going to go.
Yeah,
from
and you don't want to marry me and him together.
Well, it's funny because that episode, like, it has a bunch of your snappy dialogue in
Right.
it, and yet the episode itself, I won't say I revile it, but I was just kind of like, oh, well, dang, I don't really care for this one so much. Whereas I loved all
you're
the
in
others.
a big club, yeah, you know. A lot of people don't. I have to admit, I really like it. It's not my favorite of the bunch, but it was just such. I think by then, they had made it more. They were trying to make it more kid friendly. And so I think there were some of us that were kind of like, I got you, kid. You know, and because we were kind of disappointed.
Well, that's what they wanted to begin with. I mean, when the series started.
I think
and the great stuff was the old stuff.
In the beginning, they wanted something more serious to like attract people, and then they kept saying like, okay, now we want a
Dumb it
younger
down.
audience, and they kept trying to get them to do it younger,
really?
and then they finally like said like, fine, we'll give it to somebody else, and they said, okay, you want a younger series, we'll do it, and then they did Batman Beyond. And it was like, no, not really what we were talking about.
Yeah.
You bring in what's his name from Boy Meets World, and it all goes down the tube.
Your Perchance to Dream episode, though, is one of my favorites ever. In the
Yeah, I was
series.
disappointed they didn't show that last night.
Oh, man, yeah.
Speaking of like last night, you were here for. Let's talk about like why you're here.
Yeah.
In Austin to begin with. Well, we'll get back to the other stuff.
He came to Beyond the League of Extremely
That was
Ordinary
it.
Gentlemen.
That was it.
Now we have your release of your new book, the Complete Drive-In, which is a
Yeah.
collection of the 3 drive-in books from before. Well, it's
Underland Press. Yeah, it's all three. It's all three drive-in books. A lot of people don't even know there is a third, but there is.
And last night there was an event where they did a screening of Bubba Hotep, a few of the Batman animated series, and a Masters of Horror episode that you also wrote. Mm-hmm. And so this is where we got to see all this. But so what brought about this reissuing of Drive-In?
Well, the Drive-In has, been kind of like this little cult classic, and I say that with the quotation marks because that's other people's words, but I wanted to say it because I like those words. Cult classic. It makes me sound smart. But they've been reprinted several times, and in fact, the first two have actually been reprinted together in the past from Carroll and Graf, and they've been printed overseas, and so they've actually been in print somewhere. At pretty much all times. There's been a comic book version, there's been film interest, but the third edition, or the third book, was done by a small press named Subterranean. And we did it there and thought, I want more people to see it, but I don't really want to have it published as a third one until the first two are back in print. And then Underland Press gave me the opportunity to put all three of them in a book. And so, that's what happened. It has a great introduction by Don Coscarelli, as well as some illustrations that he did for the movie version that he wanted to make early on that he was trying to make. It never happened, unfortunately.
And we loved Coscarelli because he did the Phantasm series
and
Jason
Beastmaster
and Beastmaster.
He did Beastmaster.
Yeah.
And most importantly, he did Bubba Hotep.
Yes, which we haven't even mentioned that yet, but. Joe wrote Bubba Hotep, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it.
Yeah, and if you're even mildly a Bruce Campbell fan, then why haven't you seen this film yet?
Yeah.
I think it's his best film.
I was going to say, I think it's his best performance. That was the thing that blew me away when I first saw it, and even watching it again
last
night.
Despite, in spite of being just in spite of playing Elvis, which is easy to slip into cartoonish caricature, he actually adds some remorse to it, which a lot of that comes from the dialogue and the whole regret of what is my life.
Well, I think I like to think that a lot of my dialogue and all that was there, but what he did was that he really felt that character and got inside that character. I think the makeup helped. I think he became that guy.
It was excellent makeup.
And what he says, I could play this, when I'm 80 because nobody knows what Elvis was like when he was older, and so he could play an older version. But I was really impressed. I mean, I'd always enjoyed Bruce Campbell's movies, but when I saw that, I said, man, there's layers to this guy's acting ability. I want to see more stuff where he gets down and gets with it because, I mean, he really has it.
And he hasn't gotten the opportunity to do
No,
that, really.
He hasn't.
He usually plays Bruce
Talk
Campbell.
about a guy that's had a good career but should have had a greater career.
Yeah, I read an interview with him recently, actually read one of his books where he was talking specifically about Bubba Hotep and how much he loves it because nobody ever asked him to stretch. They just want him to play Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, it's all one-liners.
He's so well known for the Ash from Evil Dead parts that when you cast him, it's like, no, we just want you to basically be Ash.
Yeah.
He's doing a great turn on Burn Notice.
He is. He's wonderful on there.
Yeah.
Well, he had that really make or break moment about 15 years ago in Congo. And it wasn't his fault,
but the rest of the movie was so terrible.
It was. He does this little exercise when you go see him speak, and he talks about, okay, we've got, and I don't remember the names specifically, but he said, okay, you've got the producer of this, the writer of the novel Jurassic Park, the director of this, one of the stars of the Evil Dead series, and blah, blah, blah. You're the producer. Do you greenlight this movie? And everyone just goes, yes. And he goes, congratulations, you just made Congo.
Congo is one of those weird things. I'm like, there were so many Michael Crichton books, and Crichton is a good pulp writer. He had a lot of really good books. Congo wasn't one of them. I never was a big fan of his writing, but I was a fan of his ideas.
Yeah.
Right.
And I thought he had great ideas, and Pulp is right. And Andromeda Strain, I think, is his best actual novel.
I completely agree.
And the only thing that might be an exception to that is that Eaters of the Dead.
Is that actually an adaptation of something else, or is that total bullshit?
No, that's his.
Okay,
because it touches. It seems to me. I mean, this is just my guess. It touches on a lot of the myth of the white goddess in some ways.
Sure.
But what I really thought of was Lovecraft. All the time I'm reading it, in some level, there was like Cthulhu was hiding in the background, not really showing much. But
you kept waiting for it to go there, and it never does.
But I love that book, and I wouldn't call myself a fan of his writing, but I actually thought that the Jurassic Park was a better movie. Yeah. I thought that a lot of the movies made from his books were better than the books, but the guy had something going, man. He had a way of getting into a story. What he had a way of doing was tapping into what was important at the moment for people, meaning that this whole idea of cloning dinosaurs, this whole, because that was already starting to kind of come out before the book, but he grabbed onto it, and he did this Prey thing where he did the what was it, the little nanotechnology and stuff like that. So to me, what he was good at was tapping into what was popular.
Being
exactly
topical.
what I'm not good at.
Well, I felt like that worked against him later in his career, though.
It did.
When he started doing, he had his book about sexual harassment.
Well, some of that stuff to me is just dreadful. But, he did that one, and then, no global warming book. I forget what it was.
Yeah, I can't remember. No, well, most people did.
That was a soapbox more than it was a book.
And I mean, even if you agree or disagree, that book was a soapbox.
State of Fear.
I like writers, actually, that interject ideas and political views and things like that, as long as that it doesn't become the bulk of the novel.
You've got to have something to say, but it should be. I feel like it's better if it's a subtext than.
Otherwise, you're just preaching.
Yeah, I do too.
Although there are people who are good at that. I say, comedians certainly, I think are better when they wear it on their sleeve. But
sometimes
and it's a different format
if you agree with them.
Then again, I mean, when you're looking at a novel versus a comedian doing, say, a stand-up routine or a longer format. With a novel, it takes you days or weeks to get through it, depending on how fast you read. Yeah. Whereas with a comedian, it's kind of a short and sweet.
Yeah, that's exactly
sort of
right.
Thing.
You nailed it.
And to have that stay with you for all this time, it can feel like you're being bludgeoned with it. But allow the historian in me to jump out for a second, because while perhaps the Michael Crichton books, they might not have a lot of longevity with the current audience, we might not go back and read them in 50 or 100 years. I'd be willing to lay money that historians are going to look at this, because exactly what you're saying, if he's picking up on what's the pulse point in society and the fears in society at that point, somebody's going to, in the future, look at that and say, this is how we know what these people were thinking.
I think you got a point there.
That's the thing, is that it's good for historians, but as far as audiences go, you're automatically dating something by putting any sort of real technology in it.
But that's important too.
It's like they're making a Neuromancer movie now, and it's like, why?
It's already 20 years out of date. I feel like you could take that, especially if Gibson himself is involved, because Gibson is a futurist, and it's like, come on, man, he would love to sit down and figure out how to adapt that into what it would be like if he had written it.
Well, it's like watching. I'm curious. It's like watching, and of course, I bring it up any chance I can get. Videodrome.
Yeah,
which
one of the best movies ever made.
Amazingly prescient. It kind of touches on YouTube and the internet and cable and everything. But
it still works.
People in the future are going to go back and try to read the Crichton novel about the Betamax that goes insane and kills people,
and go, what's a Betamax?
And not know what's going on. It's just, it feels like
people
you're automatically anchoring.
You can't as a writer. I think that you got to lean to try to be as aware as you can about what has some relevance or whatever, but you can't as a writer try to think ahead like that, because I think first of all, I think it's childish, and second of all, you don't know. I mean, if you stop and you think about it, I'm hoping 100 years from now people read Faulkner and say, what's all this racial stuff about? I mean, that's what you hope, but it won't date, in the sense that there are always going to be people that will understand the impulse of where that comes from and how people deal with it and how it changed lives. It may no longer be a black and white issue, but it will be an issue in some manner, shape, or form. So to me, those kind of books last forever, and they have. It's like To Kill a Mockingbird. Those things have a historical relevance that doesn't date them so much as that it. I think Kat nailed it. It shows,
it becomes a metaphor.
And it shows that time when you actually have a historical window into that time, instead of just seeing some element of that time which dates it. It's like when you write a book, and I was talking about this earlier with Rick Claw, and I was telling him that I'd read this book It was an old gold medal novel. I don't even remember which one it was. And it was a pretty good book, but it kept talking about these actors that the people looked like this actor, looked like that actor, and the problem was nobody knew who those actors were anymore.
Sure.
And I'm kind of up on that stuff in many ways, and I didn't know who they were. And they were actors that maybe did one movie that everybody thought was going to be a star. And, it's like, will Megan Fox be remembered 50 years from now? Probably not.
She will in Wikipedia entries and so forth when it's made clear the whole story when I abduct her and we run off to Mexico. It's going to be huge news. It'll be like Frank Sinatra Jr.
In 2 years or so, when she starts to become completely irrelevant and she suddenly, oh no, I can't believe someone released that sex tape. You know, come on. That's the one thing that'll still be there. But Joe, I want to ask you a question about something you said there about Faulkner and his racial issues. Right. Now, I'm like about 3/4 of the way through The Bottoms right now, which is definitely one of your more critically acclaimed books. And there's a book that deals with racial issues right there. I mean, it's a point where, like, even though, I mean, I've read your stuff. I know you're not a racist at all.
Absolutely not.
And that book, the main characters of it are definitely, like, they're living at a time when everyone around them was.
Right. I lived in that time, even though it wasn't the 30s. I lived in that time in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s.
It's still hard to hear that, even, like, in the book. You're listening to some of the things people say, and it's like, there are points that... There was one I actually cried at one point.
Good.
I had to stop and just let it out, because it was, like, really painful to hear some of these things that people were expressing so directly and so blatantly. It's almost a horror novel of racial hatred.
Yeah, at least they forget is what I think. And because it's like the Holocaust, when people try to deny that it exists, it scares the hell out of me, because I'm afraid someone will be stupid enough to believe that and not understand it. And I had a kid in one of my classes, a black kid, didn't know who Martin Luther King was, and I nearly had like a heart attack. I says, you go home and you look up Martin. What do you mean you don't know who Martin Luther King is? I mean, I wasn't angry at him. I was just shocked. It's not time to forget that. Now, I mean, I know I'm probably more scarred than you guys by that, because I saw horrible stuff. I don't mean people murdered and things like that, but I saw people mistreated. Yeah. And the idea that you don't talk about this, or that you can't talk about something harsh or dark or terrible, is a bad thing. That doesn't mean you have to do it all the time. But to me, that book is, and it's not the only one. A Fine Dark Line and The Big Blow, which is about Jack Johnson, and which was almost a Ridley Scott movie, but didn't happen. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But those books to me are about a time that people should not forget, because it can happen at Night They Missed a Horror Show. There's a lot of those. People keep talking about this racial stuff in my book, and the reason for it is it's there, and because in my books and my stories, because this was the scarring experience of my life.
And
a few years ago, I couldn't even, 40 years ago, if I were to be sitting in a room with a black man in East Texas, he better be working on for me or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
much like I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
And now, our listeners who have been listening for a long time can attest. Jokes get thrown out like that.
Yeah, but
on a regular basis.
To be fair, the black people are in charge of this site, so.
Well, one of them. You said 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and that's
well, it's not gone now. Right. Don't think it is.
Well,
you live in Austin. That's another thing too, guys.
Right. Yeah.
You guys live here, and you're living in a bubble, and you live in a political bubble. The world is.
We know
the world. Yeah. Well, you may, but trust me, when you get out there in the other, and you know what? For a while, it seemed to have gotten better, but then when I'm not gonna get political, but when George Bush came in, it's like it opened that door again. And then when Obama came in, it's like people were just waiting to jump on him. If he had been a white guy, they might not have been happy with him. But I guarantee I don't give a damn what they say, because he's a black guy. That's a big problem with a lot of these crackers.
Well, do you feel like in the same way that like you're trying to do with your book, it's like, let's not forget this, let's discuss this stuff, let's be aware that this hatred is there, it's part of humanity that wasn't long ago. In some ways, what happened with Obama winning just made everyone put their badges on of whether or not they were had these racist
it brought out a lot of, there's a lot of people that probably didn't even think of themselves as racist, but suddenly thought, my God, we can't have a black man president.
But don't you think that's healthy on some level, though, for a society on a whole to be able to, like, look, you clearly need to let this out, and we need to know who you are.
Well,
it's time
I will
for us
say
to
it
be
for
able
that.
to discuss it and to say, look, there is racism still in
They
our
don't
society.
discuss it, though.
Well, that's the point, is that,
No, I
we
mean,
they're put in positions that...
Racism isn't always about logic. It seldom
Right.
is about logic. It really isn't about logic.
But I think a lot of
as
people
time-
had to confront themselves based
Well, as
on
time goes on, it gets more covert. And you bring up a point with Obama being in office, it does bring people out, but they just talk in code. It's a lot of code where you hear when they complain about intellectuals, they usually mean Jews.
Yeah.
And it's all kind of stuff like that. There's more people who complain about affirmative action. It's like, well, I just think everything should be fair, and it's like, come on, if you really sit and think about that, that doesn't even make any sense.
Wait, but what's funny about that? Here's the thing: they complain about a black man being an intellectual. Where 20 years ago, the problem was, well, they're just not able to have that.
Well, you don't want
kind
them to
of
get uppity.
intellect. Yeah, get uppity. And so you can't win. I mean, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with the man or not, he can't win.
Yeah.
Is like you have the oil spill, and they leave it to BP to do it because people say we don't want government involvement. They can't do it. Then he's got government in there. Where's the government?
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
I was like, keep your hands off my Medicare. Keep the government out of my Medicare. What do you mean? The government is Medicare.
I know,
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
it was a big thing
Yeah.
about he kept talking about change. Where's all that change? He's like, well, I'm going to change healthcare. Hey, why are you changing stuff? What the hell?
Well, his actual record speaks for himself on some ways. I mean, he has done more good than
Absolutely.
than Clinton did or Bush
man,
did.
I
already.
think he's the greatest president of my lifetime, and that includes John Kennedy and all these people. The only person that I think there's one president I think it rivals him, and I think he was one of the worst presidents and one of the best. And from the Vietnam War, he was the worst, and that was Lyndon Johnson.
Right.
From civil rights, he was probably the greatest civil rights president since Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, yeah.
And that was Lyndon Johnson. And although I dislike many things about Johnson, when it comes to civil rights, nobody other than Lincoln can hold a candle to
Yeah.
him.
Well,
and Obama's doing it though, but his is much more subtle. Because it isn't just about black people; it's about people.
Well, that's because
we're at that
racism
point.
now is subtle now.
That's the thing is that back when I was a kid, I was born in '76. Grew up in West Texas, very small town, and I remember this riding my bicycle when I was old enough to ride my bicycle by myself. That there was a pool for the black kids.
Oh yeah.
And they weren't allowed to go to the other pool. There was a school which, by the time I started first grade or whatever, or no, kindergarten, it was integrated. But for a while, it was just the black kids. And I remember riding my bicycle around in junior high over there was this part of town, and some people in town still refer to this by a horrible racial epithet.
I know that one.
Yeah, and there was a wall that was built up to separate that part of town, and I confronted my mom about it. She had lived there her whole life, and she denied it. No, that was just a fence. And I'm like, no, Mom, it's a very obvious delineation.
Of course it is.
Yeah, and now, finally, and none of my friends believed me. No one believed me. And last year, I think it was, they put up a plaque on the wall saying, so that we don't forget, this is why this wall was built, and we're not going to tear it down.
Wow, I can't believe that town did that.
Yeah,
I know the town you're talking about.
Well,
Well,
it took until I was people denied it. No one would believe me. I was just this kid saying, "This has got to be what this is for," and it took them 40 years to acknowledge it. I mean, this was last year when they finally acknowledged it.
Was that town Auschwitz, Texas?
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, whether you believe it or not, when it comes to, I mean, and obviously, racism is one of my main beefs growing up in East Texas. But whether you believe it or not, it's a lot better. Let me tell you why. Because when I was growing up, I remember when I was a kid, I went to the movies, and there was a bunch of black people that were going up these stairs that were around the other side, and they had to go to the balcony. And I said, Mom, why are all those people going up? And she said, well, I can't explain. It didn't right, but it won't always be that way. And my dad was a terrible racist as far as like what he said and whatever, but he treated people the same. That was his good side. But I remember when we were a kid, we went to see what they called, and I quote, a nigger minstrel. And what it was white people who would do it in blackface. And this was in Mount Enterprise, Texas. And they would put white lips.
Was this the 60s?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, early 60s. And it was before the Johnson, did his thing.
Yeah.
And it was probably about the time of Kennedy's death or just before it. But we went to one of those, and and the big things were that there was all these jokes about how lazy black people were, and people were just laughing. And and I looked back, and there was a black janitor standing back, and he was laughing himself sick. And when I saw that, it hit me just the opposite. Instead of saying, "Oh, he's okay because he is," I thought, "Oh my God." It was painful, yeah. And then we were going home, and there was a rainstorm, and there was a car broke down the side of the road. It was a black family, and people they're not stopping. We ain't stopping for them. Mm-hmm. And so then my dad saw him. He stopped. He was a mechanic. He got out in water, laid on his back underneath the car, fixed their car, got back in, and I kind of looked at him. He said, "Well, they had kids. Those kids were in there." See, my dad, and I went down to the garage one time, and he's giving all these black kids $5. Well, $5 this is in the late 60s. Was a lot of money then.
Yeah.
And he's giving all that. I said, "Daddy, what are you doing?" He said, "Those kids are hungry." Well, see, he'd been hungry. Mm-hmm. He couldn't read or write. He was born in 1909. He was 40-something when I was born. So you can't, all this stuff isn't cut and dry is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, right.
But what I did notice is that back then, if my mama was walking down the sidewalk and there was a black man standing on the sidewalk, he damn sure better take off his hat and stand off the sidewalk till she passed. And nothing bothered her more than that. She really... She would always go, "Oh, that's okay," and they call him Uncle Jim or whatever. There was always Uncle in front because that was the standard way of referring to them. And but he would look down, and because people could just decide, I think he was looking at a white woman, and some drunk cracker one day decides he wants to go out and hang somebody, or not that ever happened where I was. I never saw that kind of thing, but that potential.
But it was there.
Absolutely, that potential was there, and you don't drink out of the same water fountain as a black person because you'll get some kind of terrible disease. And if they touch you, their skin is like an alligator hide.
Well, that's both true. Both those are true with Corey. But
I've always said that.
And then they used to say, if you get a cold from a colored people, it's worse than if you get a cold from a white person.
I was just going to say, don't drink after Leon.
No,
but it's not because he's black. It's because he has herpes.
Leon just cut me when he reached over.
Well, that's because he carries a knife.
Of course, a razor in his shoe.
No,
they all do.
That's his shark skin jacket he's got.
Now, I stopped carrying a razor because my hands are too slippery from all the fried chicken.
Oh!
You have fried
chicken? And the watermelon juice, yeah.
Okay, so thank God
I'm sorry, but those aren't a black thing because they're good.
But the fact that Leon made that joke, you couldn't make that joke in the 60s because it was not funny. It is now because we've changed more. Yeah. But it wasn't funny if you were a black person. A white person might make that joke.
Well, because now it almost seems quaint.
It's particular quaint because most people in the right mind don't
realize how crazy.
Well, what you're doing now is you're making fun of that kind of attitude, not making fun of the black person.
You can identify someone who's being mean about saying things like that right off the bat.
But
we could have used you about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we get in trouble for poking fun at each other, like me being the drunken Irishman.
Yeah. Man, we had a bunch of Irish people.
A whole bunch of drunken Irish people on this podcast.
Well, y'all are a bunch of drunks.
Oh no, we're definitely that.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I'm part Irish and I drink tea. I'm Scotch, Irish, English, and American Indian. So at least I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, but
you need to stay far away from
you have such an alcoholic gene just waiting.
Absolutely, it's just waiting to happen.
You're like a ticking booze bomb.
Now, I want to ask you another driving question. Man, this has been going well. I was like, I don't want to interrupt this at all.
It's just, it's a series of segues.
I didn't mean to get off on all that, but you asked about the bottom.
No.
We were up.
I got one final thing I want to say about that, though, is that, just because you write fiction that's considered popular fiction doesn't mean that you can't have something to say. Mm-hmm. And I've written things that were just fun, and I'm proud of those. And
Bob the Dinosaur Goes to Disneyland.
Bob the Dinosaur Goes to Disneyland. But that's about disillusionment for little dinosaurs. What the hell's wrong with that, man? Just think of all the dinosaurs that read that one. Yeah. Right. Yeah, man. I've been there.
I read The Bottoms this Christmas, actually, for the first time. And it just fucking ruined Christmas. I'm going to tell you right now.
That is one.
Hey, you're selling some books for me. I'll tell you.
It's like
there will be no Christmas. It comes out this Christmas. It comes out this December, and I'm just screwed now. It is. It's coming out from Vintage Books.
They're re-releasing it. Okay.
Yeah, they're re-releasing
it. It's like 7 in the 30s.
Yes.
Crossed with Mississippi Burning.
It's an amazing book and rightfully critically acclaimed. You mentioned something last night. About the Bottoms that Bill Paxton was
right now it's been optioned by Bill Paxton,
which is a great
Yeah,
choice.
and he's supposed to direct it. We hope it happens.
I hope so.
We'll wait and see.
Because after when you
I'm
said
co-producing.
that, Oh, great! Well, when you said that last night, I thought of Frailty, and Bill, of course, is a Texan as well.
And you said it was the writer of Frailty who's going to do the screenplay.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, that's perfect.
And Paxton, I think it's a simple plan every time. One of those really underseen, fantastic films, like little noir films that shows what a great actor he really is.
I like Frailty a lot.
Me too.
Frailty's
it's just
amazing.
It's such a insidious, sneaky little film where when we saw we went to the screening for it and just thought, okay, we'll see what this is about, and the way it just creeps in. And my little brother went through a phase almost just like that, where he was telling me how he had a dream where an angel had come to him and spoke all this, and I'm like, look, before you get too far, I need you to watch this movie because you're starting to scare me right now.
Yeah, a little.
and I know better because that angel was talking to me.
It's like you'd call one of those like a anti-brainwashing groups, except they all tend to be that kind of Christian.
Well, Leon, you had
crazy.
a question.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I railroaded you.
Well, I just want to make sure we fulfill our requirement to talk about driving.
Yeah.
And the thing about driving, now this is coming from out of left field, but almost everybody out there who's a burgeoning writer, especially a horror writer, every one of them has come to me with the story like, I'm writing a story about people who are trapped in a movie theater. Yeah. And I just want to tell them, like, okay, look, here's a guy who wrote the ultimate story on that, which is driving. I mean, it's a drive-in theater rather than inside of a movie theater.
Sure.
I just feel like telling them, like, look, read this and then you can stop.
Well,
now.
read that and watch the movie Demons.
Demons. Oh, God.
Okay.
Terrible.
I've not seen that.
It's bad.
Demons is great. Screw you.
No, it's not.
Yes,
It's
it is.
awful.
But I want to.
I love Demons. I'm sorry.
What was your inspiration for driving?
Actually, when I was growing up in the 60s, we used to go to drive-ins a lot. And drive-ins, when my wife and I were young, that was a big thing for us as kids even. I mean, we weren't kids together, but I both know that we were aware of them. But especially for me, because as a country kid, the drive-ins were a big thing. And they were originally family-oriented. And they had like seesaws and stuff up front for the kids, and swings. And then the teenagers said, well, man, we can go there and be by ourselves. Right. And then what happened was that they started making movies for teenagers, and they started making bad movies for teenagers, but they made movies that were relevant to teenager interest because they were about driving fast cars, and they were about being young and dating and all these sort of things, and so then they started having the horror mixed in with that, and it was just the stuff that all of us wanted to see, and between sex you could watch the movies. And then you could go back to having sex. And then there was popcorn. You could have popcorn while you had sex.
This is the best damn thing ever. Why did they get rid of them?
And then if you set it up right, you could have sex, have popcorn, and watch the movie over her shoulder.
Hey, I know.
And here's a really funny thing. When I was
My
little,
wife just hit me.
When I was little, we never went to the drive-in because the Stardust Drive-In Theater in the town where I grew up.
Perfect name for a drive-in.
Showed only porn.
Yeah, but that was later though.
So
Okay,
that's
but
like when
I never went to one, but
saw
I remember
the
driving by
drive-in.
and I would see porn on the drive-in.
I saw.
How the hell did they get away with that?
I grew up with a drive-in theater, really old. In fact, I'm told one of the oldest ones in America in Virginia, Fredericksburg, Virginia, one of America's first towns, right down the street from our house. Like we could walk there. And damned if we didn't. Every single weekend, I saw more movies in the drive-in growing up than I didn't, and I treasure those.
I saw
memories.
Star Wars
films,
and The
science
Exorcist
fiction
there.
Yeah,
But those were
the later days.
Those were what was it? Joe Bob Briggs called them. Those were hardtop movies, meaning that they had been in theaters first. When they started doing these movies for teenagers. Not only do you have a lot of those like the Roger Corman movies, the AIP, but there were movies that were made for drive-ins that showed nowhere else, and really they shouldn't show anywhere else. They were so bad. Many of them, they just used the film over. They don't even exist anymore. I mean, you couldn't find them. You can't find them. They don't exist unless somebody's got a copy somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But what happened is that all of these movies were like that. But you might see 3 or 4 in one night. You had Dusk to Dawn, where you could come in as soon as it got dark, and then the movies were over when daylight came. Yeah. And the Dusk to
awesome.
Dawn. And then later they would have where they would show second runs of the indoor movies, things like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and have a Western, Western theater, spaghetti Western theater. But really, what defined the drive-ins for people my age was this whole teen element. That
it was the social experience.
It was the social experience. And then drive-ins, too, got really crazy. You'd have people out there barbecuing and stuff. And a lot of this, when I started writing the drive-in, I brought all of these experiences and, of course, just extrapolated on it. And this idea, we used to go to the drive-in, people would hide in the trunk. And I had an old Plymouth Savoy, and the back seat would fold down, so you never had to get out of the trunk. You just put you in there, and you just fold the seat down, and you come in.
Well, they always charged by the carload when we went, and so people would hide in the car when we brought them in. So they said, okay, the carload meant 4 people, so you just put a bunch of people in the back.
$1 a carloads when I was doing it.
Yeah, under blankets and stuff.
Well, $1 a carload. Yeah.
They used to barbecue out there, and people. In your book, there's a point when it's after everything goes to hell, but people are just openly having sex.
Where they are barbecuing.
And that used to happen just during that was not weird at all. No. When I was going driving, you go and you'd see a car rocking, and you did not come knocking.
No, it's right. And in the winter, it would all steam up.
Yeah.
So you were like in your own little bubble,
So it was its own weird little experience there. I really was able to reading the drive-in. I was really able to. I miss
drive-ins. Probably as being older though, I wouldn't want to deal with the mosquitoes and stuff like that.
Well, about I want to say year and a half, 2 years ago, they adapted the drive-in and the sequel by Avatar Press in the comic books.
That's right, they did.
And I read those, and that was actually my first exposure to your tale. And
well, thank you. My tale's very nice. It'll be $1, goddamn.
Well, okay. Can we turn off the mics for a second? It was. Holy hell. I mean, the popcorn king. Okay, guys, I know we got a lot of young kids who just like reading just fucking disturbing stuff, and that's the drive-in.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so dark.
I thought it was funny.
Well, it is that too.
But no, it is dark though, and a lot of people just get the humor and miss the fact that it is dark and that it's actually about a lot of things, racism, stupidity, and I'm not a big fan of religion either, and a lot of those things are in there.
A lot of mob mentality.
Your new introduction that's written for it really makes that clear, and I'm so glad that's there, because it gave me a way of looking at it as I was reading it that I wouldn't have had otherwise, of saying, make sure you try and look at this both ways, for the fact that it is supposed to be funny, and yet at the same time, you accept that this is an astonishingly dark and screwed up.
Well, you know
stuff.
What Mark Twain says, there's no humor in heaven.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, all humor is based on somebody's misery.
True. Yeah, Schadenfreude. That's true. Yeah, it's what was it? I can't remember who said that. It's like, if I get a splinter in my thumb, it's a tragedy.
Mel Brooks.
If you fall into a hole and die, it's hysterical.
I think that was Mel Brooks.
Was it Mel Brooks?
I think so. I'm not.
Now, I hear that some of your inspiration on a lot of these stories, I don't know if drive-in's one of them, is your wife's popcorn.
Oh gosh, my wife is evil.
She's sitting right there,
I know it,
man.
but she's proud of this because
he's not making eye contact.
No, I'm not making eye contact. I ain't gonna look at that one. We should put my eye on. But what we used to do is that we had a thing called Trash Theater, and we'd invite people over, and we would get one of the worst movies you could find. They were often low budget horror, like Basket Case and stuff, which I love. And
Frank Henenlotter.
In its own way, it's a masterpiece.
Belial.
They need to bring back Brain Damage.
Oh yeah, and that one too. Yeah, that's right. But anyway, we would do that, and she would make popcorn. But what we did, this is before we became a little bit more diet conscious, she would go buy a thing called Krogo. Krogo is kind of like Crisco for crackers. If you think crackers like Crisco, this is like the lower redneck version.
Bargain basement.
Yeah,
Crisco?
Bargain basement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
in other words, you know how it's made out of animal fat? They just scrape this right off the pig's ass, right into the can.
Okay.
And yeah.
All right, because I was going to ask if it was solid then.
Oh, it was solid. It's a big hunk. You just pull it out, and she would put it in this big pan she had, and she would make popcorn, and we would get a grocery bag about this size each. And I'm talking, and on the radio you can't see it, but it's a huge
like trash bag.
And we would eat this till we wouldn't have dinner. We would eat this, and we'd have gallons of Coke, all that salt. We'd swell up. And when I'd go to bed at night, I would have weird dreams, and I would get up in the morning and write them. And every one that I wrote, I sold.
Bob the Dinosaur Goes to Disneyland.
The drive-in was an article originally called Hell Through a Windshield that I wrote for a magazine called Twilight Zone Magazine, which was Carol Serling, Rod Serling's wife, was the one who, I guess, owned the magazine. And so I wrote all these popcorn stories and sold them, and I was so successful at selling them that I always knew when the bank account was getting low because I could hear her in there shaking that corn. I'd go in there and she'd be.
What? And so it's I'm curious about that because I read this once again in the introduction to Drive-In. There's a story by, and I forget who wrote the extra introduction for the book.
Don Coscarelli.
Yeah, that was Don Coscarelli. Okay, talking about that specifically, coming out there and getting
yes, that's right,
the lard popcorn.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? I mean, I love popcorn. I never eat it at the theater because it's terrible.
Here's
I make it at home.
Here's where
Karen use the lard anymore.
So
here's where Karen chimes in and says, there was peyote in that, right?
Yeah. Well, that's my question for
secret ingredient.
My question for Karen is were you a chubby chaser? Is that what's going on? You wanted to make him fat?
Back then I didn't get fat.
Oh yeah, I know. I remember what that was like. Yeah.
No, I love that. I'm one of those people that doesn't make microwave popcorn. Like it just does not come into my house.
Why
I mean,
not?
I have an air popper, but it also stays up in the cabinet.
It's
like
over the. You do it over like a.
Like 4 times a week.
Yeah.
I'm like pouring the oil into the pot.
That's
and
the way to
a
do it.
cup full of.
That's
like,
the best
the plain
popcorn. I don't do it
kernels.
anymore because of just health reasons.
Yeah.
But it's the best.
Well, I grew up us doing that over. We had one of those setups that you do it right over the fireplace, where you had the thing that you just put it right in. No, I mean it was
Or
like,
like
I know
a
what you
metal
mean.
swivel
Okay.
pot, and you just put it right
This
over
is
the
when
fire.
all of his relatives would gather around and watch him have sex with his sister. They wanted popcorn.
Jason,
Wait, from what
it's
I remember-
Virginia, not West Virginia.
Okay, the rest
Virginia.
of us don't
And from-
recognize that those are two different states.
It's incest
what I-
adjacent.
From what I remember, your sister's a lesbian, isn't she?
Yes, so she wanted nothing to do with me. I mean, I admit that if I don't lose some weight, someday I'll look like an old lesbian. But right now, no.
Someday.
Yeah.
Hey!
Someday was yesterday.
God damn it.
You feel like are we done with drive-in? You guys have any more questions?
Unless Joe's got something else to say about it.
You want to add something to the drive-in
Well, no, I
discussion?
just other than say that I'm really excited about this edition, and that the salesman in me wants to tell you that all three of them are together. This is a big opportunity for those who might want to read them, and I mean it is a really class-looking trade paperback with illustrations and stuff, and so I'm very proud of it, and. I'm still looking for that movie to happen. There's a friend of mine, Greg Nicotero, who is
special effects master.
Right?
He's amazing.
Absolutely.
He's the new Tom Savini.
Yeah, him and Howard Berger of the K&B Effects. They're just marvelous. But he wants to direct it, and I believe that he's the perfect guy to do it. And I hope that we
he could whip up a nasty popcorn.
Wouldn't
can.
that be his first film to direct?
Well, yeah, I think he's done some second unit stuff, and he may have done some smaller things, but I would love for him to do it. The only problem is there's no script, and Joe would have to write the script for free. And me being Joe, I just haven't found time to do that.
You should talk Joe into it. Maybe with some popcorn.
So Leog listeners, grab a copy of the book, and also. Since the great preponderance of our listeners are comic book fans, you can also grab the adaptation through Avatar Press. They're collected now, and they are freaky.
Yeah, if you
got them at Austin Books.
If you start buying these things, copies of this new trade paperback, that's all the more chance that someone might throw some money at Joe and say, write the damn screenplay.
Make that
And I got to tell you guys, you want to see this movie, or if you're fragile, maybe you don't.
Or just read, like I said, you do, but you want to read the book too. This is, I am not just blowing smoke up Joe's ass. This is really,
I was
really
kind of
great.
hoping for that, though. Actually. But
that's later.
Yeah, that's later. The smoke up the ass. But one of the things, and I believe it was Don that told me this. This was many years ago. He came to my house, and when I met Don, I got a phone call out of nowhere, and he ended up coming to my house and staying a few days to try to talk me into letting him have the drive-in, which he could have done, but the problem was it was already optioned, and that person wrote a screenplay, and it never got made. But the thing that I remember him saying was that it was a movie. It was a book that you read was just like a movie in words. Yeah. And I still believe that it is that indeed.
Oh yeah.
And people have tried to copy it in many ways, as they have a couple of other things.
Of course.
But I really believe that it would make a hell of a film if it was done right.
Did you get to meet Angus Scrimm?
Yes.
Did you? Is he as creepy in real life?
No,
he's a sweetheart.
I met him several years ago. He is the nicest man.
Absolutely.
He's one of those few people, like a few actors out there that just has to look at you.
Yeah,
and it makes you cold chills.
He's got that knack, that's for sure. Yeah. But when I saw him, I was at a Ray Bradbury signing, and he was just he's just a real bubbly, fun guy, really smart, really quick.
He wrote the liner
sweet.
notes to Meet the Beatles.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Angus Scrimm wrote the well, that's not his real name. That's his stage name, but he wrote the liner notes to Meet the Beatles.
Really?
If I'm fucking that up, I apologize, but I am 90% sure.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's
he used to be a music critic. Way back.
Fair enough. Huh. Wow, that's fascinating.
But yeah, nice old man. He's just.
And he especially likes that part about old man, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
Come on.
I guess Whoops. Well, he listens to this, so I should apologize.
I believe he's 80 something now, right? Isn't he like?
I'm not really sure.
80?
That's not old.
But he sure seems young. I'll tell you that.
He's like not quite Leon old.
No, well,
that's not old to me.
Yeah, but no one is except for the Wandering Jew. He's 83. That's the worst picture of him on Wikipedia.
Wow. He also wrote about Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, somebody really hated him.
There
you go. No, he wrote liner notes for many albums, including from Frank Sinatra to the Beatles, as well as whoever Arthur Rubinstein. Itzhak Perlman.
Itzhak Perlman, the violinist.
Yeah, I don't know.
You really don't know who Itzhak Perlman is?
I am so uncultured. You could not.
You ain't got no raisins.
This is the guy who thought Black Irish was the same as Moorish. I swear to God.
You want to go and tell our guests that?
No.
Oh.
Read a fucking book.
I feel so much better. I feel so much better right now.
I thought it was like the guy from Thin Lizzy or something.
No, Thin Lizzy is Black Irish, but he sure as hell isn't a Moor.
I don't know. The first time I saw him, I thought he was black. He's got that look. He's got dark skin, a big mustache, and a big nose.
That's why they call him Black Irish.
He's got an afro.
But he's not a Moor.
Wait, why do they call him Black Irish?
Leon, look at me.
They have black hair instead of red hair?
Yeah.
I am Black Irish.
Seriously?
Yes.
Oh, well, you don't look black at all. You look Greek, in fact.
Wait till you see her penis.
Yeah.
I would say that I would call that a misnomer.
Also, if you go to Ireland, it's not uncommon to see you always think of the red hair and all that, but you see the black hair and the darker Irish too, and they're split almost into like two groups. Have you ever noticed that when you're in Ireland? Yeah, there you go. We got some here. And I'm part Irish. I'm part Scotch Irish. I'm what they call Scotch Irish, which is just Irish. People think it's Scottish, but it's not.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Man, you guys make this way too confusing.
That's it.
Stayed there for a little while.
But they were there long enough that
they're
just Irish.
Yeah.
They sure as hell aren't Moors, though.
No.
Okay. So
thanks, Jason, by the way, for bringing that up when we have a guest here. I appreciate that. So that's so sweet, and I won't forget it.
We've come full circle with the racial discussion.
All right. Well, now when I hear the term tall, dark, and handsome, is dark referring to the hair color or the skin?
That's subject to interpretation
that's referring
by
to the
whomever
Sicilians.
is enamored of tall, dark, and handsome.
Usually, when I was growing up, it usually meant white movie stars. It really did.
Yeah, Clark Gable.
Clark Gable.
Gary
Cooper.
Dark.
Brooding.
Yeah.
Really? Because I got to. I mean, I don't normally speak for all of my people, but to us, you guys are all white, and this whole dark or black Irish thing.
So Leon, did you think?
Very confusing.
Did you think Shaft?
Along with White Knuckle. What is that?
Did you think Shaft was a noir film?
Dashiell Hammett's Shaft.
All right. Well, this is going to wrap up our first part of talking about drive-in. Now we're going to take a quick break and come back where we get to really focus on Joe, his career, and westerns. Hey, wasn't that the topic for this week?
That was the topic for this week.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get back to that.
Joe, you like talking about westerns,
Hell
right?
yeah.
Well, I think that will be no problem. Then.
Yeah, baby.
welcome back to Leog. We're here for our great interview with our illustrious author, Mr. Joe Lansdale, who we're all happy to have here.
Good God, we're having a blast.
We are having a blast. You know what? There's so many great things that we aren't even getting recorded. You guys won't even know about. But if you catch us at the SpillCon and get us drunk enough, we'll tell you all about it.
Or, drunk enough.
Drunk, really.
Yeah, we'll let you know when we're drunk enough. So how you doing? I could use another drink.
Yeah, but don't we always say that even like when we're completely shit-faced? It's like,
that's when we quit speaking English, then it's time to cut us off.
We're speaking Esperanto or something. Okay, so next weekend, this big spill party.
Yeah.
SpillCon.
You may have heard of it.
Big 3D extravaganza. Something you might not know about. Big Leog shindig on Sunday.
Yeah.
That is, we're putting a lot of effort into, actually.
We are putting a lot of effort into it.
There's going to be games and food and drinks and prizes. It's going to be like last year for those of you that went. It was a full house.
Yeah. Except with air conditioning this year.
Except with air conditioning this year.
And booze.
But it's going to be even bigger this year. So you really need to come, and it is at 4 o'clock at... Is that right?
No, 12.
12.
It's from
12
noon
to 4.
to 4.
Noon to 4. I'm sorry. Noon to 4 at the Indy.
Letter N, letter D.
Yeah, letter N, letter D.
And Grant created a page that gives a lot of information.
If you go into the League Lounge on Spill.com, which is in the group section, right in the front page of it, you'll see one of the listings of the posts by the Spill crew is for that by Grant.
Or
I think
email
it's the only
any
one
of us, because we'll all be there. Most of us. Most of us anyway.
I think we'll all be there.
Randy is kind of up in the air, but
really, is he up in the air?
I think. Well, he's coming back from some trip, or I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway.
Almost all of us.
But yeah, it's going to be a great time. So come talk to us. We'll tell you some stories that maybe we haven't shared on mic. And we just want to see you guys. We just want to hang out with you.
Yeah. And I would also mention, they've been slow to get it on the SpillCon posters or any of the advertising stuff.
And that's not Corey's fault. Let's just point that out.
Not Corey's fault.
Not at all.
It's just not. It hasn't happened. It might make it on there the day before. But the thing is, it's important. It's like maybe you bought your VIP pass, maybe you didn't. The Leog event is free.
Yeah.
So if you're hearing this and you can show up to the Indy, you're welcome to come in, play some games, win some prizes.
Yeah, like every year we do trivia, like a trivia
Mm-hmm.
game, and every year it's based on a different game. And this year, boy, y'all are going to be really excited to see what we put together.
We have
this
cast
time.
aside all shame.
Boy, have we.
Oh my God.
What little shame we had to start with, anyway.
You have no
As
idea.
we were doing this, what was the refrain that I kept saying? My God, we are adults, and we are doing this.
No, you kept saying that like a source of amazement. I wasn't sure if you were ashamed or you were like proud.
No, I was ashamed.
Okay, see, I was proud every time you said that.
It's Grant you're thinking about because he doesn't have the enzyme that lets him feel shame.
That's true.
Right.
No, but I looked at it. I was like, you know what? We are grown men. We're doing this, and you know what? This is amazing. People, when I was a little kid looking at adults, none of them got to do this and say, "This is what I do for a living." No, we get to do this. This is awesome. Our lives rock.
Yeah,
I think
you
it's
and
also-
Leon get to say this is what you do for a living.
Well,
we get to say this is what we do because Leon and Cyrus drafted us into it.
Well, this is what you do to help Leon and I make a living.
That I am okay with.
You're enablers.
we're enablers of dumb shit activities
Just
that
go-
is caught on camera.
Go back to the 80s with Reagan's trickle-down economics.
Yeah.
You get the better food we have, the
So
better
what you're
table
saying is you're
scraps you
pissing on
guys
us.
will get.
This is actually where trickle-down economics works, I think.
Well, good. We got to get that out as much as possible by the time you hear the next. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what are you going to do for the next show?
Yeah, and don't have breakfast beforehand either because they're going to have really good food there. It's gonna
Are
be
we feeding
great
people for
food.
free?
No, we are not feeding people for free, but they'll be like very affordable and amazing food there provided by Bo, who was our
Bo B.
drummer. If any of y'all remember when we actually were building towards having a band.
Yeah, back when we had a
used
band.
To, Joe,
Sure.
we used to have a band
a
playing. during the
three-piece. We had a trio
Yeah, it was a drummer, our
bassist,
Greg, our bassist,
and a trumpet player.
and a trumpet player they were on like 2 episodes together, and they sounded so cool. It was like we had a jazz backing group, and then they actually found better things to do and hang out with us losers. So
Well, one was a trumpet player decided to go raise his newborn baby.
yeah, well that what a loser.
Exactly. Like, how could you choose that over this?
Come on, he's got cable. Cable can do that. I mean, I turned out just fine. I
Okay.
need some more vodka, though.
Well, we're
Yeah,
not-
yes. So, well, good. We got the word out about that. Now let's get back to Joe because we got plenty to talk about.
Wait, you weren't talking about the X-Man, were you, Jason?
What?
Cyrus.
Okay,
Seriously.
and, moving on,
Take
please.
the Ritalin. Now, Joe, we're coming back to a segment
Yeah.
where we get to talk to you a lot more. And, Man, there's just so many facets to you. Like I'm really at like a loss of where to begin with the writing for the animated series, the horror novels, which is sort of
the greatest animated series in the history of anything.
The series
Thunder
that
the
brought
Barbarian,
animation
really?
back to its prominence, and some of the best episodes for it as well. And then you've created your own martial art form.
Yeah, that's right.
Really?
Yeah, I've been doing martial arts 48 years. I started when I was 11 with boxing and wrestling. My father used to fight in fairs. You know, he'd get the train and hobo from one fair to the other, and then he would fight for the money. You know, and then it's part of how professional wrestling actually eventually became. Was developed.
The show.
It started out was like a real deal, and then they started realizing, hey, we can make a good show out of this, and so it developed through that. But he was a real wrestler. He wasn't like Hulk Hogan, who, as I think some famous old wrestler said, he didn't know a wrist lock from a wrist watch.
But Hulk Hogan, strength of an ox, skin of a hot dog.
Yeah, that's right. But he did all that, so he started teaching me, and then I started studying judo at the Tyler YMCA, and then there was a Hapkido. It was a guy named Dwayne Odom, who, and nobody had ever heard of Hapkido then.
Yeah.
It's not an ancient art. None of these Taekwondo, none of these are ancient arts. They're arts that were founded in the 50s and 60s, maybe the 40s for Hapkido, which comes from an older art, Daito-ryu, which is a Japanese art, so on and so on. But anyway, I studied all these different arts over the years, and one reason I studied so many is that the instructors would move, and so I got involved in so many different things. And eventually I started teaching people that wanted to learn it, and they said, this isn't really one art or the other. What are you teaching us? And I said, I'm just teaching you what I know. And about 17 years ago, I formed a system called Xinchuan. And we use the Chinese name, which means spirit fist. Some people say, it can mean God fist. Are you trying to say you're God? And I just say, well, fuck you. No, actually, what I'm trying to say is a spirit fist, which is the most common usage of the term. But we use it because as a kind of tribute to the Chinese systems, because we think that they're not the only system, but we think they were one of the greatest laboratories. And we think that's what we are. And so that system's been around, International Martial Arts Hall of Fame. I've been in that 4 times, and I'm proud of that to some degree. But now it's got to where every year they realize, hey, man, if we have people put in this, we can get some money every year. So it doesn't have the same relevance that it once had, but the system does. And we have it. We have a school in Nacogdoches. My students are starting to spread out. In fact, we were talking last night about possibly having at the same place where we had the event for the drive-in at the Spider Cafe. Was that
Spider House.
Spider House.
U.S. Art Authority.
Yeah, we talked about having like a kung fu event where either I or some of my students came and gave a demonstration prior to it.
That'd be awesome. I was about to ask if you had any demonstrations in Austin that we could check
out. No, but we can certainly set them up, and we certainly have friends that are in different martial arts that live here in Austin.
So you can find schools for this particular.
Well,
group.
you can't find any in Austin, but we're trying to spread out. We've been around 17 years, and in a martial arts system, that's not really very long.
Sure.
When I first started martial arts, there were systems like Taekwondo that were founded in the late 50s, I believe. They weren't new. They were based on Japanese Shotokan as well as some Korean systems like Taekwon, and they were formed. Hapkido was new. Kempo was even newer, which at least Ed Parker's version of it, which is now quite famous and all over Austin. But these things, it takes time for them to develop.
What system was it that Bruce Lee was famous for? Was it
Jeet Kune Do?
Yeah,
Jeet Kune Do.
Okay.
Yeah, and he did Jun Fan kickboxing too,
as well as anybody who was ever in the movies did wushu to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's one of those things I've been doing a long time.
This is all exciting, Joe. But let's go back to your dad being a boxing hobo, because that's awesome.
He was a boxing wrestling hobo.
That is awesome.
See, Rockstar should make a whole game just out of that.
What I said earlier is that my dad had a lot of racist rhetoric, but he's my hero. He was one of the best men I ever knew. And like I said, he treated people the same, in spite of the rhetoric. The rhetoric came from when he grew up.
Yeah,
and
he was a product of his environment.
Yeah, he was a product of his time, which is not always an excuse. Don't misunderstand me. But he wasn't out doing horrible things. He was a good family man. My family was good. We were poor, but my father couldn't read or write. My mother had an 11th grade education.
But he could jump off a train and beat up homeless people.
He could jump off anything and beat up anybody.
He
was that kind of guy. Yeah, and not that he did that. I did see him knock a couple of people out. When I was growing up. Then they both deserved it. One of them tried to kill my dog, so.
Oh, yeah. I do not cotton to abuse to animals.
Yeah.
So
on any level. Yeah.
Nobody calls me a liar and goes to bed happy. If you saw the Jonah Hex thing that was in there last night, that's my dad that said that.
That's actually a good segue to talk about.
Well, yeah, because I want to open with a question from one of our listeners,
Sure.
Mr. Will Granger. He said, I just want to say that Perchance for a Dream was probably, if not definitely, my favorite episode of Batman animated series. I've never read a Jonah Hex comic, but Showdown has made me curious to watch the new Jonah Hex movie. But my question, Mr. Lansdale, is what aspect about cowboys in the Old West makes you enjoy writing about them the most? I think the first comic I read of yours was your Jonah Hex.
Yeah.
Two Gun Mojo?
Yes, for Vertigo, because you wrote 3 of them.
Yeah, three
miniseries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was Riders of the Worm, Two Gun Mojo, and Shadows
West.
Shadows West, yeah.
I did Lone Ranger, a lot of other different things, too.
I've read quite a bit of the Jonah Hex stuff, and again, not to blow smoke up your ass, because that's later in the show.
Right. I'm looking forward to that.
That's off.
Good.
I'm already starting to pucker a little.
It's good. Nobody blows smoke like Leon, let me tell you. But no, that I've read quite a bit of Jonah Hex stuff, and those limited series are easily the best ones by far.
Yes, by far.
They are crazy, funny, violent, Lovecraftian, which is always, of course, a little trigger for me.
Added bonus for Jason and
a little more Weird West than Wild West.
Yeah. Great stuff. But, and I know a little bit of the story about this, and of course, certainly don't have to talk about it, but they've never been collected.
That's not true.
Well, Two Gun Mojo has been collected.
Really?
You can find a trade of that.
Okay.
But it's because of the second book.
The Riders of the Worm has not been collected.
Yeah, okay.
Now is that the one?
And Shadows West has not been collected.
Now, I was told that we could talk about it because
you can talk about anything you want.
You have 2 albino twins as evil
the
guys.
Autumn Brothers.
Yes,
Autumn Brothers.
yes, which is based on Johnny and Edgar Winter.
And Johnny Autumn.
Which I'm hoping you can throw in, a little bit of Frankenstein as a musical break. Man, I love that song because it is a Frankenstein itself. But anyway, so they decided that, hey, this guy's putting us down and we're going to sue. What happened with that?
Well, the bottom line is that we really weren't putting anybody down. We were making fun of music in general. We had Gene Autry. There's even a place in it where Tim draws himself crapping his pants. And so, I mean, it's just kind of a foolish thing that I think they must have wanted some money. Because we actually meant it as a tribute, because I've been in books where I'm the villain and stuff like that. So, we didn't look at it like that. We weren't thinking
saw it
of
as a tribute.
Yeah. I mean, I was a big fan of Johnny Winters. And, I still like Johnny Winter music. But when we did that, we did it as a tribute, and I guess if we'd have made them like gunslingers and all that, would have made a whole different thing. Mm-hmm. But what we were making fun of was the stage persona, and this whole thing. Not them, I don't know them personally,
right?
And the only way I thought, well, do they know something I don't know? Did I tap something there that I didn't know? That are they really half worm and live underground?
That would be
how
awesome.
silly could you get? Yeah, it would be awesome if it was true.
You should write a story about that.
Yeah, but how silly can you get?
Well, that was
and this went on for 7 years or more.
Oh God!
And the thing was that when this first happened, we were being sued, and it was like we were told, I think, by DC, and it was kind of like good luck. And
really,
my friend Andrew Vax said, we're not doing this, man, and he got the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund to come to our aid. And then that
donate to them if you ever get the chance.
And then that eventually led to DC going, okay, maybe we ought to get in on this. And they did. And it went on for some time. And eventually the judge threw it out. Well, DC, and I don't want to call them, blood-sucking shithead cowards, but these guys did not put these in print because of that particular thing.
They're so damn good.
And they won the suit. And what I'd have first done is I'd have went out there and done that. I would have drawn like a big old dick on it, go, hey, how about that? We're reprinting this, and with a big dick to boot.
Right.
Well, especially right now.
I mean, I don't understand that because, first of all, what we did was parody pastiche,
right?
And it was not of the Winter Brothers. It was of the stage persona of all these people. I mean, do they really think that they're tough, tattooed guys that are part worm or live under the ground or whatever?
Well,
the hell
DC maybe they live in a little bubble and they think it's possible that they do. They're like, we don't want to fuck with those guys.
I think it's just a chicken shit way of looking at stuff, and I love DC Comics.
Sure.
DC Comics is my favorite comic company of all time.
Who's your favorite hero?
Batman. I love that stuff. And I did some Batman animated series, obviously, and I did I did a Batman novel called Captured by the Engines, and then I did a children's book called oh gosh, I can't even remember, but I did a children's Batman book.
Oh, that was The Bottoms.
No, no, don't get that. But I love DC Comics and stuff like that. But I did not understand why they did that. And
well,
why
you felt screwed over your art.
I felt screwed over that. I mean, I can understand them, saying, "Well, man, I wish I hadn't done that," but I didn't do anything wrong.
And you won the case.
And on top of that, it wasn't just them; it was music. All these music personas, Western musics, and music and people that had that Western element. Because even though Johnny Winter was the blues, we saw them as kind of in that tough guy imagery, at least as a stage persona. And we just wanted to use all these different kinds of music. And we said, who do we love? Man, we love Johnny Winter. And then they said that we were up for the elimination of all albinos or something like that. It was just
what?
It was ludicrous.
Wait, so because there are albinos getting shot in the book, then therefore you're for killing all albinos.
It's just silly, of course.
That's ridiculous.
And it's really weird because I worked on a Grimjack that came out a few years later. That was a rock and roll issue.
What?
It did the exact same thing.
You worked on Grimjack?
I did. But they did the exact same thing with a bunch of rock stars, including the Winter Brothers.
Tim?
Tim
did this?
No, it was after Tim had left the book.
Oh, I see.
But I especially with Jonah Hex about to come out, the defining, and you talk to any comic book fan, they will say, "Oh, well, you need to read the Lansdale Jonah Hex." I mean, it's one of those things that's like, even if they've never read anything else by you, they'll say, "No, that's the defining."
About 2 years ago, year and a half, something like that. It was around the time when the new Jonah Hex title's coming out,
right?
And I read a couple of those, and I just thought it was okay. I didn't really love it, I didn't hate it. Just it wasn't enough for me to pick up. Randy, a guy who usually hangs out here with us and owns Rogues Gallery Comics and Games up in Round Rock, Texas, as we often give them a plug. He said, "I have something. Are you a Joe Lansdale fan?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I have the entire the 3 miniseries that he wrote for Jonah Hex, and you should read that." And that's where my love of Jonah Hex comes from, because it really is I think the best representation, because it's not straightforward Western, but it has all of those tropes.
Well, yeah, and the thing is that I get so much fan mail to this day. I get email. I meet people all the time. They say, "Man, to me, that is Jonah Hex." Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think I invented Jonah Hex.
Yeah, but didn't you invent the occult side of it, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, John Albano did a wonderful job. I mean, he's the inventor of Jonah Hex. He's the man.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that a lot of people believe I'm the inventor because it was the Jonah Hex that hit them so hard. Yeah. What I did is that I brought a kind of more oddball horror weird element to it, because I remembered it that way, and it wasn't that way.
which is once again though what the movie's doing. The movie's
the movie's borrowing my content. I'm not saying that the movie's my work, although there are lines in it like "cut myself shaving." Those are all
right. I
remember that.
Yeah, and there's stuff in there, and all that stuff is right out of my work. And so I just did a really nice 10-minute Jonah Hex animated. That's going to be on Under the Red Hood, the new Batman.
I've seen that. Everybody's been talking about how it's been like DC animated trying to do some more mature animated works.
Yeah, and this Hex thing, I really think it's going to be good.
That comes out really soon, right?
Yeah, I think that San Diego Comic Con they're going to premiere it. I may be there. I'm not sure, but I may be there. But like I say, at the bottom of all this, I love all of those characters. I love DC Comics. I just don't like how the legal division of them treated me. Not
it's a big company.
Yeah, not the company itself,
sure.
Not the creators.
Sure, by saying DC, you're not like, wow, Jeff Johns is such a dick or something.
No. These people, I've not even dealt with some of these people. Yeah. But what I'm talking about is just that particular aspect of it, that legal aspect of it. Corporate speak.
I mean, the decision was probably made by 2 guys in suits that aren't even there anymore.
Yeah.
So.
When I get, Marvel is what a lot of people I meet. Oh, I love Marvel. But for me, DC Comics, I started reading them in the 50s. When I was a kid, and I was watching, characters like Superman with George Reeves when it was run on TV. There were reruns actually when we were watching them and that was in the 50s, early 60s, late 50s, early 60s. I think it was late 50s. I'm not sure exactly.
They were still rerunning them every day when I was a kid in the 70s.
But they quit running them for a long time, and then they brought them back. But I loved all that stuff. Batman, anything Batman. I read the comics, and one of my greatest points of pride was working for DC Comics. So that's one reason that really, really, kicked me in the teeth, because here's these guys. I'm writing something. I'm working in that tradition that comics can do satire, that they can, and I think if everything's safe, then what's the point in doing it? And it wasn't like I thought I was reaching out on a limb. We thought we were doing a tribute.
Yeah.
And and it was, even though it had that satirical feel, these are all people we love. I mean, I'm a big Gene Autry fan and Roy Rogers, and we had this group that was sort of like the Sons of the Pioneers. That's not who they were.
Love the Sons of the Pioneers.
Yeah, oh, me too. And so it was that's kind of where all of that came from. But I mean, I would love for them to put those all in one package or 3 separate packages.
God, it would be so
and
good.
re-release them. Two Gun Mojo, I think, you can still. I think they still sell it overseas. I think that they may still have some versions of it.
No, I was on Amazon just a couple days ago and saw that you can buy that collected pretty easily.
You can, yeah, that one. But the others were never collected. And,
they should be in one big
And Riders
volume.
of the Worm, people loved it.
Oh, yeah.
It was really weird.
It was weird. Somebody was telling me they didn't like the third one, and I just read it for the first time. I'd read the first 2 several times, but I just read the third one and went, I think this is great. I don't know what people are talking about.
I enjoyed all of them. I do think the first one is by far the best, but I think the second one's real close. And then I enjoyed the third one's fun. I do think it's the lesser of the 3, but just because I think it's the lesser don't mean I didn't like it. Right. Now, of course, I wrote it. That has
it's the shortest. It's the shortest.
It's the shortest, but that's because they gave us a shorter issue, so we were kind of. I think they gave us 4 originally, and then they decided they were going to do 3, and so we were kind of like, oh, what do we do? Because we still had this idea that we'd come up with.
Well, are you reading comics now, and if so, what are you reading?
Well, what I tend to love to read right now are the archives of DC. I read DC art because I grew up on a lot of those. I've been trying to collect those. We just, like I said, a pipe broke at our house, and we got flooded, and I'm hoping that all my comics survive.
Yes.
But the archives I read, and then certain things people will come along and say, read the New Frontiers, which I thought was incredible.
Loved it.
Oh man,
blew my mind.
I think it's the best comic of the decade.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love Grant Morrison, and there's so many of these different comic writers that I read that I don't read everything by them, but when people say point out something to me, it's because I read lots of novels and lots of short stories, so I don't tend to say I'm going to just take a whole Batman series and read everything in Batman.
Right.
I pick certain things, and I have to admit that I prefer them collected because I really kind of got tired of buying them, and then I had to read this one to find out what happened here.
Sure. Right.
And then
I'm the same way. Yeah.
And so I tend to get for the collected issues. I got the Batman, Robin, Grant Morrison.
I have to ask you, since we are talking about what comics you like, and you do obviously read some newer stuff as well. Did you ever read? What do you think about Garth Ennis's Preacher? Have you
I like Preacher. I said I did an introduction to it when they collected them.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I wrote the introduction, and I said this isn't Texas, but it is marvelous. Because it is certainly it's a British guy's idea of what Texas ought to be.
Sure.
Or what they think it is. And I just think he's terrific. When I met him, he told me that my work had influenced him, like Jonah Hex and stuff like that.
Awesome.
And
it's obvious when you read it.
Right. Yeah. But I think he's great. And I really like The Preacher, and when I did that, I was really honored to do that introduction. Really like that.
And you and Tim Truman, you kind of took that same magic from Jonah Hex and moved over to the Lone Ranger and Tonto.
Oh yeah. I grew up again. I love the Lone Ranger. Rush Limbaugh was so upset with that series, he actually had it on his TV show when he used to be on TV.
Wow.
And held it up, and he said, "This is amazing. This is what's wrong with America." And I thought, what? I did a Lone Ranger comic? And what he was upset about is in the first page it shows Lone Ranger Tonto punching the Lone Ranger out. And he said, "I haven't read this," and there was like somebody he knew had read it. Like his maid's dog or something had read it. And one of my great moments is that he disliked that comic, which made my day.
There's no greater honor
they even
than
had
Rush
they even
Limbaugh
had some little ad that they put out that said, "This is amazing, Rush Limbaugh."
No greater.
I didn't do that, but
no greater honor than Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck or someone like that.
Especially
saying
morons,
that you're terrible.
And people that don't even take the time to read it, but they dislike it. And what he disliked was that he had the Indian who was getting the upper hand on the white man. Yeah. And that's exactly what came across to me.
He didn't say it that way,
but
that's
what came across to me. Yeah. It was the coded thing.
Well, you read it to where Tonto was the brains of the operation, which him having, been out there longer, it only made sense. I mean, he was the one who nursed the Lone Ranger back to health.
Hey, Fox News, I'll pay $500 to watch a Native American beat Rush Limbaugh into a bloody pulp. And I think lots of other Americans would too. I'm just saying.
Hey, Wes Judy's not doing anything right now. I mean, just saying.
and just like you were bringing up Batman before, right. And the Batman like I didn't realize maybe it might be my favorite. Like I always thought your Jonah Hex was my favorite, but the one with the ventriloquist when we watched it last night, I just always remember that because it has that perfect moment where Batman looks through the window and sees what's going on with Arnold Wesker talking with him. Yeah, and he has such a great what the
look
fuck
on his face, like
look on his face.
Fucking kidding me?
And for the rest of the episode, every time he's just like, I can't believe I'm having to outsmart a puppet.
Yeah. Well, Michael Reeves, who was my editor on that over at Warner, he was so funny. He would talk about that he looked at the window and go, "What? It's a puppet?"
It's hilarious because for once, I think in the cartoon, Batman is like, I don't even know what to do here. And then there are points like when he's hanging there, it's almost like he isn't even taking it seriously. Yeah. He's like, sure, I'm tied up, but I've got the upper hand because this guy's fucking crazy.
So, Leon, I hate to cut in here, but sure. I know you've got like 80 questions there from fans.
Well, I don't know about 80, but a lot of people wrote in. And,
we'll segue like crazy, but we might as well take your question and let that guide us.
True. Okay. I read James's question.
I got a few.
Which is very I know Jason has some, so I don't know when he's going to just jump in on me. Okay, James. It's a good question from James.
Indeed.
And James says, he says to Mr. Lansdale, how in the hell did you come up with Bubba Hotep? And were you satisfied with the film version?
First of all, I was satisfied with the film version. I was really fond of the way Don directed it. In fact, I didn't think it could be filmed, and I never thought the first thing in mind that would ever be filmed live action would be Bubba Hotep. I remember when I wrote it, I told my brother, well, I wrote something definitely won't be optioned for film. I wrote this thing called Bubba Hotep, and I laughed and said, it'll never be optioned. Don optioned it, but I got the idea from the standpoint that my mother was in an accident and had to be in a rest home, and so I spent a lot of time there, and you heard a lot of the people that were residents, and they talked about sex and bowel movements a lot. So when I decided to write the story, I decided to use that as the tone for the story, which, carried over into the film, which I didn't think he would do, but he did wonderfully, and I'm glad. But I also, when I was a kid, John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and that was a big moment for everybody at that time, especially our people our age. And then my brother lived in Memphis when Elvis was there. He's 17 years older than I am. So my older brother and my only brother and my only sibling actually recorded at Sun Records, and he was not a success, by the way, or you would have heard of him by now. But he's written comics, though, and he's writing comics with me even at this point. But he knew Elvis, and my sister-in-law, who he met there, went to school with Elvis. So I had this kind of Elvis connection, and I love Elvis Presley music. I got to tell you, I am a big Elvis fan. So I just kind of had all this boiling around, and then I made up this title called Bubba Hotep once, almost as a joke, because I was a big fan of mummy movies, and I said, well, if I did it, it'd probably be like a Bubba movie,
Wow.
And
the title came first.
Yeah,
That's
the title was there first, and then I was asked to do this. I believe it was Paul Salmon. I believe. I can't remember who edited the book. I feel bad about that. It was called Elvis is Dead, I think. But they said, would you write this Elvis story? And they have one by Lou Reed and a bunch of different people. I think Louis Shiner might have been. Really a strange group, yeah. And so I did Bubba Hotep, and when I wrote it, I thought, man, something wrong with this. This is not right.
As an Elvis fan and a JFK fan, you're like, this has got to be something. Somebody's judging me somewhere.
Yeah, and so I turned it in, and they loved it. And when I reread it, I thought, yeah, it's pretty cool. And one of the things I really liked that they did in the film is that I did the hieroglyphics coming out of the mummy's mouth. I mean that film, if you've read the story, there's a couple of things that he inserted, like the ambulance drivers and some stuff like that weren't in the story. But you read the story and you see the film, it's an amazing interpretation. I think it's probably anywhere, probably 95% what I wrote, and the other 5% is a mixture of stuff that he put in and then stuff that at least captures the attitude of what I wrote. I mean, I was really impressed. Bruce Campbell, Ossie Davis, oh my gosh, they
poor
were
late
terrific
Ossie
together.
Davis.
Yeah.
I
got to meet
awesome
Ossie Davis. And as a side, my daughter, Casey Lansdale, is a country singer, and she also writes country music. She has a contract in Nashville for that.
Wow.
But she was in Italy, and so we went over there where she was performing at a blues festival, and then she was going around doing other stuff. But one of the other guests was a guy named Guy Davis, who was Ossie Davis's son.
Wow.
And I got to meet him. I had on my Bubba Hotep T-shirt when I met him. And he took my picture and took Karen and I's picture together. And he says, "Oh man, I got to send this to And so he sent the picture. And
so I know there's a lot of talk been going on for years about a sequel. Have you been approached about
Bubba
that?
Nosferatu.
Yeah.
At one point, I was asked. I never was big on that, and then because I sort of thought that film was kind of in its own way, a little minor classic film, and leave it alone. No more sequels to suck it dry. But at one point, Bruce and Don had wanted to do the film bad enough that, and I like both of them. They're friends, so I thought, well, yeah, I'll break down and do it. But it just didn't turn out. It ended up that Don wrote a script with Stephen Romano, but that for whatever reason it never got made. Ron Perlman and Paul Giamatti were supposed to be in the sequel.
I remember hearing
that. And I think it's still a potential film, but I don't really know what's going on with it.
So you're not really connected with it?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. I mean, I would get paid some money if they made it.
Because it's based on your
yeah,
original
but I have to be honest with you. I don't really think there ought to be a sequel.
Okay.
But if there is, I hope it's good.
So you didn't express interest in writing
No,
it
but
yourself?
at one point I was asked and was going to do it because it was Don and Bruce.
It was my understanding that when I first read the pitch that it was Elvis in New Orleans, while filming King Creole, and he encountered vampires.
So it's a
well,
prequel.
some of that is ideas.
Prequel,
some of those are ideas I threw out,
Mm-hmm.
and then some of those are ideas that Don threw out. And we kind of, he took a few of those, and I told him, I said, "Man, you can have them," and so I don't really know what he did with the script, but I remember I had the old vampire was like an old woman in a rascal. And she was like riding, and I had like the colonel was a vampire, and that he owned he owned like an antique shop or something, and I don't know how. And then I had an idea. I'm sure they didn't use. I said that every time that Elvis when he comes back, and I'd figured out a way to bring him back. I don't know what they figured out, but I figured it just starts with him, hitting his chest, bringing him back.
Oh, so it was going to be an actual sequel.
Yeah, a sequel.
Yeah.
And then when he came, but it was going to go back in time when he was younger, when it was going to start about the films. Yeah, and my idea was that when he came back, it gave him this connection with the past. That every time he tried to urinate, he was trying to pass a gallstone. It would cause him to time travel.
They should have done that on Lost.
I doubt they used that. Yeah.
Okay, so getting to that, in ideas like that, I have just a quick question. You can answer it yes or no if you like. Are you on that you are aware of any sort of government watch list? Because after reading The Night They Missed the Horror Show, you don't write something like that without getting the attention of law enforcement.
Not that I know of, but who knows?
But then again, you wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, because and I say this with all respect, there's something not right going on upstairs with you.
I'll tell you what that is in there is just most of the stuff in there happened. And it was put together in one story as if it happened in one night. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say there is an extrapolation there, but the dog, that all happened.
Oh.
The finding the bodies down in the Sabine River, happened.
Yeah.
People, the way blacks were treated in that, those things happened similarly.
Yeah.
Now it's bringing these two guys in and doing and all the stuff that happens. I don't want to give the story away.
Mm-hmm.
That was extrapolation, but it was still based on a number of. In fact, I know the guy that drove with the dog around and everything. So I'll just hook him up, and they thought that was funny. And one of them is kin to me. But anyway,
Fardo.
Yeah. But anyway, that and the other one is somebody that I knew, and I'm not going to name any of them, but. So that really was not all false. I mean, obviously, I extrapolated to make a story and to make it even darker than the realities, but a lot of the events were true.
Well, I was expecting it to be some sort of supernatural horror movie. I don't know why. That's just what I expected going in. But by the time I got to the end of the story, it was made even more horrifying because I realized, Jesus, I bet he heard stories about this growing up in East Texas, and that all of this is feasible because really, if you can think of it and if it's physically possible, somebody's done it.
Yeah, they did some version of it. There's also another story that's in the collection, High Cotton, called Stepping Out Summer '68, also which contains a number of true events and some that were just stories I heard that may or may not be true, but I wanted to believe that they were true in a horrible, wicked sort of way. Yeah.
Well, speaking of High Cotton, it's a collection that last night when I bought a copy, you told me that you thought it was the best of your short stories.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Even though there's a book called The Best of Joe R. Lansdale, which I think's good, I've always the reason. And there's one called Sanctified and Chicken Fried that's also considered the best. But the reason I like High Cotton is that it's such a wide variety of stories. But the other two also contain stories that I think are among my best that aren't in any other collection.
Sure.
Some of them overlap.
Well, I bought that copy last night after we watched Bubba Hotep and Incident on and Off on Mountain Road and everything. And the first story in there is The Pit.
Right.
Which is, it starts off with some pit bulls fighting to the death, and then it goes to humans fighting to the death in some little backwoods town that is off the map. Well, I was reading it, and I was reading it, and I'm not afraid to say this. I was taking a nice warm bath after an evening of vodka and Joe Lansdale features. No pit bull fighting.
We're scared of them too, Joe. Don't worry. Yeah,
I was sitting there reading The Pit. And as I'm reading it, my two big boxers, two big dogs, are 6 feet away, just brawling. And I'm reading these pit bulls, about these pit bulls tearing each other apart. And then my boxers are just, and they were doing it. They do that all the time.
Yeah,
I mean, they're having fun.
My brother used to have boxers.
Yeah. They were just going at it. And I finished that story, and they're sitting there, both standing at the edge of the bathroom looking at me, and I was just like, well, great, I can't get out of the bathroom because they're going to tear my fucking balls off. So I just had to sit there and read a few more stories, which, guess what, didn't make me feel any better. Because I went and read The Night They Missed the Horror Show, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not afraid of my dogs anymore, but I'm still not going to be able to sleep tonight, so... Yeah. Thanks for that.
Well, you're welcome.
welcome. Joe, I want to ask you a question going back to the vampires thing. Now, your definition of vampires is very different than what Hollywood lately is wanting to talk about, define vampires as. What are your feelings about the current angsty, non-traditional vampires going on right now? I'm just curious, how do you actually feel about that?
Well, I mean, I kind of like the idea of non-traditional vampires, but this to me has been around so long, it's now the new tradition, and that the tradition is the romantic vampire. Yeah. I just figured they'd stink and have bad breath because they're dead.
Sure.
And I like that darker version of the vampire.
Yes.
And I mean, I always thought Richard Matheson's I Am Legend, the book, not those films, although there a lot of people like the films too, but they're shadows of the book. And I always thought that Progeny of the Adder by Les Witten is a great example of vampires. And I also thought that the Night Stalker version, which was originally a novel by Jeff Rice that Richard Matheson did the screenplay for, for the Night Stalker.
For
Kolchak.
Kolchak,
who was originally mainly a vampire hunter, and then they made it more into a general.
Well, no, he actually started out. There was a movie, it was a vampire. Then there was an episode that was a vampire. But then after that, it was zombies and werewolves.
Monster of the Week. He was the big influence. For the X-Files.
I loved Kolchak. But Jeff Rice wrote the Night Stalker, and it was a novel, and it was just like a little paperback novel, and then it was made into the film with Richard Matheson writing a very good screenplay. And the book's a lot of fun, too. But I always like that kind of nastier version. Progeny of the Adder, if you haven't read it, it's kind of a forgotten classic. And it really kind of predates a lot of the really dark, nasty, everyday vampire. You have the Bram Stoker vampire, which became like Bela Lugosi and Christopher Lee, which lives in the castles. But when I was a kid, there was a thing called The Return of Dracula. It was an old black and white movie, and it scared the hell out of me because it took place in a little town similar to the little town I lived in, or at least seemed to me. And Dracula comes in a car, and he's there, and that's the kind of Dracula or vampire that really influenced me as a reader, and I haven't really done a lot of vampire fiction. I don't know that I've done any that I think about it. The Dead in the West has elements of vampires, zombies. It's kind of hard to say what they are. Ghouls.
Like Matheson.
Yeah. And so those kind of people. Then of course Matheson, just knocked me dead. I believe Stephen King got it right when Salem's Lot. Because there you have the dark.
Salem's Lot's one of my favorite books.
Yeah, me too. I believe that you got great vampire novels. You got Dracula, of course, absolutely wonderful.
I mean, you can do a sympathetic vampire, but I just don't think that's what's happening.
Well,
right now.
and Salem's Lot, and then I Am Legend, and Progeny of the Adder. Those are among my favorite vampires. I think it really began with Anne Rice because Interview with a Vampire, which I think is a terrific novel.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think it started a trend, and that's the new trend. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not a trend I like.
It went too far.
Homoerotic Eurotrash is the trend.
See, the first two Anne Rice books are great. The Interview with the Vampire, Vampire Lestat, they're wonderful. Yeah. It's a whole new definition of the vampire.
Right.
But then she went too far with it.
I don't know if she went too far. She just went a way I didn't like.
She started believing her own press.
Well, I don't know. But what I will say, because I never read past those two.
The one Memnoch the Devil is fun just because it's her version of Dante's Inferno. Yeah. And that's kind of
Well, isn't Queen of the Damned almost a comic book?
It pretty much is.
Lestat starts flying around and flinging fire from his hands.
Yeah, they all turn into superheroes all of a sudden. And the first two books were historical novels about the past, and they're really interesting.
Well, one thing that strikes me that really might be right up your alley, and you've probably seen it, is Near Dark.
I love Near Dark. When I saw Near Dark, I felt a tremendous kinship.
Yeah, I hate it when they ain't shaved.
Oh, man, somebody wrote a Near Dark question. I totally blew it off.
Oh man!
No.
What was their question?
But one of the best 3 vampire films ever.
I agree. It's one of the. I don't know about best 3, but it's in the top 10.
It's in the top 10.
Well, it's one of my favorites.
Well, now,
mine too.
Jared Idiot want to know: are there any actual vampire Western titles out there?
Yeah, there are. I don't know that. Nothing jumps to my mind right now, but if the film is Curse of the Undead, and then of course there's Dracula meets Billy the Kid, or the Kid meets Dracula.
Well, there's one that came out in the late 90s.
The Dusk Till Dawn 3.
Daughter. Yeah, and there's a bunch of really low budget.
Well, From Dusk Till Dawn,
Sundown, the Vampire in Retreat.
Yeah, vampire.
Wasn't there a Shaw Brothers film that was like?
Oh yeah, Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, but that's kung fu.
Yeah, but I thought that took place in the West.
No.
Didn't it?
It's all.
I'm mistaken.
Vampires and kung fu.
I never actually saw it.
It's like hopping vampires too. It's not like
no, it's not.
No, that's more a bit later when they were like, we got to do.
You're thinking Mr. Vampire and something.
But I would like to see the trend go back to that just because I would. I've been thinking about writing a novel like that myself, but I hate to reveal that here because I may never do it.
Like a hybrid?
Well, just like my version of the vampire.
I think that would be great and necessary because really, if you read Dracula, as Alice and I were discussing recently, it's Dracula himself is a lot more frightening. Yeah. He's not as romanticized as he was in the Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Well, no, his sexuality is a kind of evil, nasty kind of sexuality.
It's very animalistic.
Yeah, very animalistic, and he's a scary dude, And a lot of the things, too, that people think about Dracula have never read the book because a lot of it comes from the movies, things that they developed which, has become its own mythology unto itself. It's like the werewolf, and that goes back to Kurt Sidomak, or how you say his name, and even a man who is pure of heart and says his prayers by night can turn into a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the moon is high and bright, or something to that.
Did you get a chance to read The Historian?
No, I started it, and to tell you the truth, I had got about 20 pages and gave it up.
You should go back to it.
Well, I didn't think that I would not necessarily ever read it. It was just a little too plodding for me at that moment.
It's one of those books that takes a while to get to the supernatural. It feels like, and in fact, when I was reading it, I wasn't clear it was going to get supernatural.
I actually was enjoying it okay, but it was easy. I easily got distracted.
Right. Now, maybe you weren't in the right place, but that's one of the better classic Dracula books I've read.
Well, I plan to read it.
As I am, of course, want to mention, and as Kristen mentioned in an email, one of our other members, a video game, Dark Watch. Dark Watch, which is it's a Western, but it's all about the secret society of vampires in the Old West, and it's got a really cool mythology built up around it. It was a decent first-person shooter video game, but it's about this group called the Dark Watch, which fights against evil.
Yeah, they're a government agency.
Yeah, and it's if you're looking for something that is a good vampire Western hybrid, That's a pretty good one if you're in the mood to play a video game, So there's that. But
what system was that?
Dark Watch was on the original Xbox, but yeah, it was creepy and it was a hell of a lot of fun, and I thought it captured at least the style of both good horror and good westerns.
And let me say this as someone who is obsessively playing Red Dead Redemption right now.
One of us.
Which is one of the best video games ever made. It's
ever.
It's funny. Someone was asking me recently, why do you want to play a game based on westerns? How is that going to be fun? And I was like, I'm just not going to talk to you anymore ever again.
It really
you clearly don't know what you're talking about.
It really is. It's Grand Theft Auto, but it's a western.
But I'm playing it, and there's a point where you go, I'm just waiting for like tentacles to come out of the range or something because it gets so dark at points.
There's some
that I'm like
spooky
ready
stuff
for it to get. Yeah, it gets so creepy that I'm like, I'm hoping the sequel goes Lansdale.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, I love westerns, and I don't necessarily just supernatural westerns. I love westerns.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing one with Robert Mitchum that was based on I believe it was a Luke Short novel called Blood on the Moon, and it was a noirish western. I mean, its tone was noirish, and I remember seeing that, and it having an impact on me. And I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's a great movie, but I felt its tone was incredible.
The movie was called Blood on the Moon as well?
Blood on the Moon,
I don't know that one.
It's also a novel. I believe it's a Luke Short novel.
Okay.
And probably could look it up and make sure.
Because Robert Mitchum played...
Robert Mitchum's my man.
God, he was awesome.
One of my favorite
Night
actors.
of the Hunter.
Oh, Night of the Hunter is absolutely
one of the greatest movies
Cape
ever.
Fear.
Well, yeah, those two right there.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Robert De Niro, when I saw that, I didn't like that one because it was everything they do now has to be hyped so much. People hanging under cars and doing stuff, that just
there's no subtlety.
I can't buy it.
It did have a great score though. The new version had such a wonderful
But I
score.
mean, you got Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with Betsy Palmer in that, yeah, she's in that too.
In
Cape Fear.
Suffice
the
it to
remake,
say,
or?
you should see
No,
both.
the
the original. Yeah,
Suffice it to say, you should see both.
Yeah, I
versions.
really like both of them.
Yeah, they're one of the sometimes remakes are.
I've seen both versions of Cape Fear.
I like the original better too, but I think that the Scorsese's version has a lot of quality. Good
I don't think it has.
It.
I think I love Scorsese, and I think that there are moments in it that are terrific.
It's like if you like Shutter Island that came out recently, then you'll probably like Cape Fear.
I like Shutter Island, and I didn't like Cape Fear.
Because I felt like it had that.
So see, everything you're saying is
I know.
So everything you're saying is mistaken.
I know.
But let me tell you, I didn't love Shutter Island, and the problem I had with it is it's very simple. It's same one I had with the book, which I thought was beautifully written, is that it's all about a punchline.
Yeah.
And when once you get that, you're done. And that's not true of everything, because there are a lot of beautiful things to look at. But for me, that's all about leading to a punchline. The problem was about halfway through the book, I knew what the punchline was.
Well, I haven't read the book, and here's what kills me is that I saw the trailer, and I figured it out. And I was like, really?
Well, it was the only solid guess there from our, from being film literate, I feel like on some level, you're like, well, the most likely answer here has got to be that. And there's a point the film tries really desperately to throw you off that track, but you never really do.
There are probably some people out there who watched it and were really thrown a curveball by it.
But I feel like it was going into a really well-made haunted house.
But I think that even if you weren't and you find out that in the end, and I, that's not true, because some twist ending movies I can watch again and again, but a lot of them, it's like some twist ending short stories is once you know the twist, it's no good. But when it's written in a clever way, and that's not all it's about, you don't care anymore. Because I can read Fred Brown over and over, I don't care about the twist,
right?
In his short stories and things like that. I don't care, because there's so much other wonderful stuff there. I always go back to Raymond Chandler, who said, he'd like to write the kind of novel that even if the last page was torn out, you'd read it anyway.
Now, you've heard that great Raymond Chandler story about the making of the Big Sleep film, right?
Yeah,
where like
they asked him who killed the chauffeur.
Who killed the chauffeur.
Yeah. I always love it. He just had such great lines. He was she was the kind of woman that were kind of blonde that would make a bishop kick a hole in a stained glass window.
I insist to this day that The Big Sleep, the film, is probably my favorite screenplay.
Wait, which one?
The Humphrey Bogart film,
The Big Sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny because the movie doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Well, the movie is almost exactly the book, though. That's what I'm saying. That's
close. The tone is more there. It's the Big Sleep, though, that they got to give Lauren Bacall character a bigger part. It's not that, not like the book.
I was watching the movie.
Point, though. It certainly has a tone. I think it's a classic. I love it.
I was watching the movie closely, and I had no idea idea what was going on.
The thing is that the problems that the movie has with that are the exact same problems in the book, though. That's where the whole.
Well, you know, I do think that's hype though, because I think the book does make more sense.
Do you? Okay.
I've read the book about 20 times.
I mean, I love it. I
love it, and I love the movie.
Yeah.
And you know, I thought Farewell My Lovely that Robert Mitchum did was almost just like the novel that he did. That was a really great novel.
The Long Kiss Goodnight. The Philip Marlowe adaptation.
Oh, maybe that's the one
with
Elliot Gould.
Have you ever seen that?
What?
Robert Altman's The Long Kiss Goodnight?
No, that's A Long Goodbye.
Long Goodbye. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's
The Long Kiss Goodnight.
I hate that movie. I hate that movie.
Really?
That's a defining thing. Michael Connelly and my friend Lee Langford. I'm sort of got almost out of the club because they love that. In fact, Michael Connelly owned the place where the Elliot Gould's Marlowe lived. Oh. He had. Wow. I've been in that apartment, and what I thought was funny is my friend Lee Langford had a pet possum that used to live in the closet there, and you know, so I always thought that was funny. But they had that as their office because they wrote screenplays and stuff. But when I went up there, I said, "God, this is a great place," but I still think that movie sucks. For me, he missed the whole point of Marlowe and what he was about.
Well, he was definitely reinventing.
Well, he was just screwing it up. You know, there's some things you don't reinvent. The thing that I think bothered me is that even though I like Elliot Gould, I thought he was the worst pick possible for Marlowe.
He was certainly,
and I'm not. And Altman's
definitely
one of those guys.
Choice.
The best scene in that whole thing is that when he hits that girl with that Coke bottle and says, you know, her I like, I don't even like, or something like that. And look what I did to her. Kind of is the whole scene. I thought that was the best scene in the whole thing. But I just find all that mumbling crap and him going. And there's a couple of moments that I thought were very funny, but there's not a lot that's there is very Chandler.
What's your favorite Chandler?
The Farewell My Lovely.
Okay.
And I like nearly all of them.
Now, Joe, like before Jonah Hex or any of that,
right.
I think the first thing I read of yours was I started with the Hap and Leonard mysteries.
Right.
I read
those are westerns.
Yeah, I guess you could.
In their own way.
Yeah, in their own way. I think I started with Mucho Mojo, which is the second one.
Right.
And then discovered that Savage Season was actually the first one.
Right. I'm doing the screenplay for that one right now.
And for anybody who hasn't read these, man, I absolutely love these books because it's like Elmo Leonard except with kung fu. Like you found a way to work martial arts into a novel, and it works.
You sold me.
One of my friends is the book critic for Chud, and he's been after me to be getting into the Hap and Leonard books, and I just started with Bad Chili.
Oh yeah.
And getting back to what Jason was saying about stuff like The Night They Missed the Horror Show, there's a question I've got about the beginning of Bad Chili.
Okay.
Because it starts off with Hap laid up, having just gone to war with an insane squirrel.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things. Is this something you were like taking from life?
No, let me tell you about that. Squirrels can get rabies. It's very rare, but they can.
Right.
In fact, somebody challenged me on it, and I showed them that was true. Mm-hmm. But where I actually got it had to do with a rabid rabbit. And it was when Jimmy Carter was president, he was attacked by a rabid rabbit. And I don't know if you remember that, but the Secret Service had to shoot it or something. I think they were in a boat, and it was like swimming.
So did that actually happen? Because I always heard it was one of those things like he said it and no one believed him.
I believe it actually happened, but even if it didn't, that was the impetus for it. I believe it actually happened.
Well, I mean, I'm not.
But I won't swear that it did because I don't care. It's because and that's why I changed it to a squirrel to protect the innocent rabbit. But when I did that, I just felt like that. I felt that was the impetus for it. Yeah. But I just thought that was so, in its own way, so insanely funny. I always think about my friend Neil Barrett. I have to bring this up. He lives here in Austin. He's one of the best writers that nobody knows about. It's the goddamn shame. He just got the writer emeritus from the Science Fiction Writers of America. And but when he was a kid, he was given a Christmas present, and his dad, they had come down. He said, under the tree there was a little dog house there, or a little house, and he said, son, go over and open that door. So Neil goes over there, opens that door, and a puppy charges out and bites him. And then he starts running around the tree, and then his dad is attacked by the puppy, and the puppy has rabies.
Oh my
God! It's the only guy I ever know that got a rabid puppy for Christmas, and he had to take shots. Back then they gave you shots in the stomach, so he had to take shots. Yeah.
Well, there's one of them where Hap has a job in a chicken factory where he masturbates chickens.
Yeah.
And I've heard that like this is actually a real job, or maybe one that you had at one point.
No, thank God. But I heard about it, and so I used it. Now I sure hope it's true.
But we've all choked a chicken.
Yeah,
one time or another.
I've
but
had
he got paid to do it.
Yeah, I've had some terrible jobs though. But I mean, I've had some jobs too that were just tough that I liked. Like I worked in the rose fields, which Hap did. Mm-hmm. I did a teeny bit of bouncing, which Hap does. I've done a lot of different things, and so I try to bring those elements that some autobiographical aspects to the fiction, when I write it. But it doesn't mean it's always absolutely literal.
Well, my first exposure to you was back in '96, and I was looking for a good Western comic or a good horror comic, and then I found both on the shelf, and it was Blood and Shadows.
Yeah.
And I grabbed it on a whim, and it kind of fucked me up.
One of my favorite forgotten things that I've done.
Nobody knows about that. It was Vertigo released it, DC Vertigo, and it was brutal and everything, and that introduced me to The God of the Razor.
Right.
And that was the first thing by yours I'd ever read, and I read the whole, I think it was 4 issues miniseries, and I meant to bring it so you guys could check it out. I'll let you borrow it. Okay. Really good. Kind of a time traveling, throughout the era, but it deals with the
Private Eyes, Westerns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it deals with the God of the Razor. And
interracial love affair, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. And I guess a good 10 years later, maybe not quite that many, probably more like 7 years later, I started to learn more about you and your writing, and people were recommending it. I had written a script that Leon, after he read it, he said, "Have you ever read Joe Lansdale?" And I was like,
"Yeah, Jason is a filmmaker, by the way."
I was like, I've heard of him, and then I thought, I think I read a comic book he wrote or something like that. So I went out and I grabbed Night Runners, not realizing that The God of the Razor was in Night Runners as well. And as I'm reading it, I was like, oh God, I know what this is. Oh, it's that fucked up thing from this comic book. I think this is one of your more fascinating creations because he's just so damn terrifying. Can you tell us about the God of the Razor?
Well, the God of the Razor actually first appeared in the Night Runners, but I wrote the Night Runners in 1980 or a portion of it, then finished it in 1983, and I couldn't sell it. It was so weird. It was so far ahead of its time in that kind of terror,
Yeah.
And at least that's what they've concluded since, and I'm going to agree with them because it makes me sound nifty. And but what happens, I couldn't sell it, so I started borrowing things from it and developing stories. And so I wrote this story called God of the Razor, developed on this one scene in the novel. And then I took other pieces out of it that were not God of the Razor related, but were out of the novel. Boys Will Be Boys, I had that section published, and some other stories that were inspired by it. And then later on, the novel finally sold. And so there were all these other things. By then, I'd also written other stories about the God of the Razor, or had begun to do the comic. And then there's another short story called King of the Razor, or King of Shadows, which is also a God of the Razor story. It's only appeared in one rare edition. It's my favorite God of the Razor story.
Really?
Yeah. And the same character has appeared in other places.
Well, tell us what he is. Tell us.
Well, God of the Razor is some sort of interdimensional demon that is everything. He's the god of everything sharp. Everything, and he's a weird looking dude. He's got for shoes he wears the people's heads. His feet fit into their mouths, and he wears them like shoes. He has a top hat with razor blades. He wears a coat that's made of skin from Aztec warriors who've been killed, and he has all of these different kinds of things that are related to death and objects that are sharp.
Every illustration I've seen of him has been just really chilling. I mean, he's on the cover of Night Runners that I have, and he's on the cover of a couple of the Blood and Shadows.
Yeah. Well, this was before a lot of that kind of thing was going on, and now you see a lot more of it. And when I did it in 1980, I couldn't sell it. I'm not saying so much that people copy, but that just it was in the air, and that I was there kind of early on with it.
Well, it was much more disturbing and violent and what the hell when it came out.
Right.
You know,
I tell people tell me to this day that they gave them nightmares. Well, people say I wasn't ready for that.
Well, see, I read Night Runners, probably 6-7 years ago, 8 years ago, and the idea of a frog gig going up someone's ass still sticks with me. And I only read it once.
Wow, I forgot that was in there. Yeah.
Yeah. It is.
I hate it when that happens too.
Yeah. It is a relentlessly brutal book, and I read it, a good 10, 15 years after it was written, and it is still very. It's still a kick in the teeth.
Well, it came out from a small press first because nobody else would publish it at that time. They were all too same with my first 2 novels. It took me a while to sell them. Mm-hmm. But when that one came out in hardback, then it went to paperback at Tor, and then it ended up in another paperback at Carolyn Graff. It sold overseas and stuff like that. It was back a few years in a limited edition, but I think there's fixing to be a trade edition of it pretty soon.
Yeah, it's a damn solid story, and it was one we were talking about before we were recording, in that it's very filmable.
Oh, yeah, I wish somebody would film it. I mean, I've had actually Neil Barrett and I wrote a screenplay of it. But the only thing we did different is that we made the God of the Razor more distinct. In the novel, there's some sort of the way he's handled there. You can kind of look at it as real or not.
Yeah,
and
it might be a hallucination from the crazy
and
kids.
we just gave it the whole hog. Mm-hmm. But the screenplay never got made, and I'm looking for somebody to make it. I'd love to have somebody make it. It's one of my favorite.
Well, we've got a filmmaker right here. Yeah. Really a big
well, talk
fan.
to me after.
Yeah. Well, Leon, I don't trust myself.
Leon, I know you got one more question before
I do,
because
we held Joe
segment.
here for held him hostage for nearly 4 hours.
I'm fine, man. You're fine.
He's having fun. And that's because we're sneaking liquor into his iced tea.
Oh, you didn't want Long Island iced tea?
Yeah, if I drank, I'd probably be down on the floor already. Fortunately, I don't.
Well, one last question from our old friend Nate, who usually, he admits normally he shotguns lots of questions, but he's such a big fan of yours. He's like, he just wanted to get in this one. He said, I used to think historical accuracy would be something to stick to, and anachronism would be something to avoid, like the plague. But there have been many great Western stories that play fast and loose with these things. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what sort of guidelines and restrictions you hold yourself to, specifically when it comes to writing Westerns. Love your work. Really happy to hear you on the show.
Thank you. I'm kind of mixed on it. Mostly, I prefer things that are historically accurate. Even if you bring in weird elements, you want the rest of it to be historically accurate. I do think there are exceptions sometimes when you build just a wild fantasy universe that I think of as almost like an alternate universe. But I like it to where you kind of get the feel that you're really over the top right up front. Or like when I wrote The Magic Wagon, I used a lot of historical elements that I put into that and tried to keep it as historically accurate as I knew how to do, and yet brought this sense of mystery and weirdness to it that can also be interpreted as maybe real and maybe their own interpretation of it. When I did Dead in the West, even though it's a wild zombies westerns, it actually is fairly historically accurate as to what kind of weapons people carried in those times and how they worked. And if you make a mistake with a gun, you'll never hear the end of it because the gun people are absolutely nuts.
Well, that's not how many shots that gun
I've had them do that to me, and I don't mind because I like to be accurate. And when they tell me, I know Stephen Perry is like giving me some good advice on how to do weapon stuff. But sometimes it's just, you said 38, but you didn't say that it was a 38 Super, and they don't make 38s. Well, if I say it's a 38, don't you think it might be the only one they're making? And so some of that kind of stuff, I just kind of makes my ass tired. But I love being as historically accurate as I can in most of them. And I believe sometimes when I watch, this is the funny thing that I have too, is that when I watch Westerns, and a lot of times, they have things that I know weren't at that time in that era, it will throw me off, and I can't watch it. And like one of these things I've been wanting to write for a long time is the True Life Adventures of Deadwood Dick, which is about black cowboys in the West and buffalo soldiers and stuff like that. Because a lot of people, because of watching John Wayne movies, these guys weren't just cooks. And like the people who fought all the Indians, they were black guys. The guys out in the 9th Cavalry and the 10th Cavalry, during Geronimo and all that. I mean, there certainly were white soldiers, but there were a lot of the soldiers who were doing the fighting were black guys.
Who were conscripted.
Absolutely. Well, no, a lot of them joined and wanted to be there because it was a change from what they'd had before. It was a kind of freedom, a kind of respect that they had not had, and they went in droves and joined the military. The 9th and the 10th are two that I'm thinking of in particular. And the first people up the San Juan Hill were the Buffalo Soldiers, and that's not well known. It's beginning to be more, better known. But when the people who fought the Apache and people like that, the 9th and the 10th, they weren't the only ones, but they certainly were there. So a lot of the stuff you think about the West, there was a bicycle corps in the West that the cavalry used bicycles right toward the end to try to see how they would work. And but by that time they were bringing in cars and stuff like that.
It's like Butch and Sundance.
Yeah, it sort of died out, Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, I never realized how that overlap with cars worked until watching The Wild Bunch, when I was like, wait, there's a car. Yeah. How? And then people was explaining how that was when there was a switchover.
Man, before the end of the 19th century, there were telephones. Mm-hmm. There were cars. There were things going on that people don't think about. When you watch these old Roy Rogers westerns where they have the stagecoach and then they stop and use the phone, it's almost right. It's a little bit stressed, but it's got that feel that used to be seemed like an anachronism. Because I've had people say, oh, it's anachronistic that they had serial killers in the 1930s. No, it's anachronistic to use the word serial killer, which I did not use. But what about Jack the Ripper, who was the first really recorded one? Mm-hmm. But obviously he was not the first.
Hell, we had one here in Austin in the late 1800s.
Well, one of the first recorded, where forensic science said this is a serial killer, was here in Austin. It was like the second, I think, or third ever that someone ever actually put the term to.
Like Albert Fish, Jack the Ripper, and then the guy that was here.
Yeah, the serial killer wasn't used until
the Girl Annihilator.
They didn't use the serial killer term until about the 1980s.
Yeah, there've been serial killers,
but there've been serial killers
since the beginning of mankind. Probably
one of the things that happened.
Werewolves come from that legend?
Absolutely. And a lot of people did not link those things early on, and they would have a murder here, but you didn't have the same kind of media, the same kind of law enforcement. So somebody that was killed here was killed 20 miles away. 20 miles was different. In the Bottoms, I talk about that.
Oh,
what happened in one county over here
might as well have not happened.
Well, it might not happen. And in fact, to some extent, even now, you listen to the news, and today 5 people were killed in a crash in Wyoming. Well, that's local news. We really don't need to hear, because all you hear is this bad news, as if that really relates to you.
Well, it's weird how the way the media has taken control of the public consciousness on the level of murder, and that now we assume that anyone who killed a bunch of people is just, they're a serial killer. Whereas before, the concept that people would kill because they're crazy, and they just killed with no connection.
Well, the big
between
thing is they didn't link a lot of these things, and people didn't know it was the same person doing it a lot of times. And now with forensics and people that are studying how serial killers operate, there's a lot more understanding of that. This is one person doing this. So I think that's one of the big differences.
Well, look, in the Bottoms, you're very much exploring the idea that, at least at first, that here's somebody who's killed someone who's a lesser class citizen, so nobody's going to follow up on it anyway.
Yeah. I'd heard that term when I was a kid. They're talking about people that traveled and that they killed people. They were called traveling men, because if they killed somebody, they'd move on. Well, I never really thought about it, but it was a serial killer. If somebody would move on and kill somebody somewhere else or whatever,
Yeah.
Let's
hope that's done.
If only. Well,
other than Jason.
Clearly we could go on another 4 hours with conversating, but I want to show respect to your lovely wife Karen, who has been gracious enough to stay out with us.
She's been very patient.
And Joe, thank you so much for coming.
I greatly enjoyed it, guys.
And again, pick up a copy of The Drive-In. If you go on Amazon and look up Joe Lansdale, you will find a huge list of stuff to pick up. Prolific guy, and all of it's good.
Yeah, I've read short stories by you before, but the first time I've ever sat down with the novels is just recently, and wow, I'm so glad that Rick set this up to have you on the show, because now I'm want to read.
Here, guys. Thanks for asking me to be here. It's been a great treat.
Yeah, I hope our fans really check out your stuff, because this is great.
Gentleman, I'll be the fire escape that's bolted
Wow, and Leog's back, and man, what awesome 2 segments that was with Joe Lansdale. It's too bad he couldn't stay all night. And we sort of touched on westerns, but now we get to the third segment, and everybody's ready to hear us really talk about westerns. And we got Bo and Kristen and Allison, and we also have no time left to do this.
Almost completely out of time because let's face it, Lansdale. That's one interesting motherfucker.
That's quite all right. Like best guest ever, possibly.
Yeah.
He's one of those. Usually, when I say someone went on and on, I mean that in a derogatory sense. But I just wanted to sit back and just listen to him tell his stories and everything. That's a fascinating guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a long, interesting life that reaches into so many different areas.
Yeah.
And he's he can talk in a way that keeps it interesting. Like it's not like Abe Simpson where you want to hang yourself or anything.
And that's why I'm not allowed in the Republic of Liechtenstein.
To be fair, that was the style at the time. So
I'm just sad Bo couldn't have been here because I know he would have loved it as much as the rest of us.
I got hosed by work, so here I wasn't.
However, since we didn't really get to cover it this week, no reason we can't pick up on westerns next week.
Fuck yeah.
So we can consider that part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yes. I think next week maybe not strictly a western show, but certainly at least the first half of it. What do you think?
I mean, you know what? We're probably going to be keeping it light because Spill.con will be happening.
That's true.
My goodness,
so let's say
is that already?
Let's say it is a combination Spill.con/western show since Nate will be here next week.
Oh,
Nate.
Right on.
So,
okay. All right, so it will be a mix of the two things.
Yeah. So we'll talk
Nate's
about.
I'm sure he likes westerns.
Oh yeah, he wrote it.
Well,
he's a huge Lansdale fan
and there you
too.
have it.
Sure. He likes to have sex with a woman. He probably likes westerns. So. Yeah.
Well, everybody, thanks for joining in and listening to the show.
Yes.
Hope you enjoyed it. If not, sorry, because
there's always some asshole.
Well, this was a one-off for us. I mean, we don't usually do this that level of an interview the way we did this time. But we are big Lansdale fans. We really want to talk to him, so this was a little bit different than usual.
It was like professional or some shit like that.
I wouldn't go that there at all.
Closest we've been to professional.
Yeah.
How about that? But
it was
they take on a life of their own.
They did, and it was a chance for us to get a guy that we all really admired and really just pick his brain.
Yes.
And I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and certainly hope that it, if you didn't, well, pay attention. You should have, and you should probably pick up some Joe Lansdale books.
Yeah, by all means. I would say pick up some of his stuff, not just to promote him because he was here, but just because you'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
There's so much of it out there, and so much of it that is
you
so
listen
damn
to
good.
Leog, you're gonna like Lansdale. I guarantee it.
You like Preacher? Well, go pick up some Lansdale.
Yeah.
And definitely, if you don't like Bubba Hotep, there's something wrong with you. And see Incident on and Off Mountain Road. That's some crazy heavy shit.
Did you like that?
I loved the
No shit. Because I wasn't
out
sure.
of it.
Because I would look over at you. You looked like you were kind of angry and you disappeared. And I was like,
No. It wasn't angry. It was like, oh my god, he can see into my brain.
Allison looks angry when she's fascinated.
Boy, that terrifies me in a very real sense.
Shit.
You're not allowed to sleep in the guest room anymore.
Well, everybody, thanks so much. And I don't know, I'm exhausted, so I'm just going to sign us off with our usual Long Live the League.